Chapter 1205. Seeing that Oyen was somewhat puzzled, Huyuni continued, Beidou school is newly established, and there's only sect leader Zhang and 7 disciples in the school. This really doesn't match the reputation of Beidou school. My Misty school has nothing to congratulate you on. These 302 disciples will be sent to Beidou school as ordinary disciples. Firstly, it's a congratulatory gift, and secondly, it's a bit of repayment for sect leader Zhang's kindness to my Misty school. Oh, Oyen stared blankly for a moment. Then her face immediately lit up with joy. She said happily, Elder Hu's gift is very good. It can be said to be timely assistance. However, these Kitty Hawk Hall disciples have been nurtured by Misty school since they were young. Elder Hu, doesn't your heart ache if you give them to my Beidou school all of a sudden? Hee. Yanzi's words are very true. These 302 disciples were all people I took away from Misty Mountain Villa in the past. These many years, I've been living with them day and night, and I have deep feelings for them. I indeed have high hopes for them. However, if these disciples are compared to the great kindness that Beidou school has shown to my Misty school, the difference is too great. Only by giving these disciples to Beidou school and expanding Beidou school's strength can I express my Misty school's gratitude. That's right, Elder Hu. These 302 Kitty Hawk Hall disciples have been nurtured by Misty school since they were young. Since they were young, they've regarded Misty school as their sect. Now that they've suddenly come to Beidou school, I'm afraid it won't be easy to restrain them. Oyen asked calmly. Huyuni nodded and said, Yanzi's question is indeed good. However, these disciples are still young, and most of them are about the same age as Shui Tiantian. They've been living outside Misty Mountain Villa for the past few years, and their feelings towards Misty school are a lot weaker than those of ordinary disciples. Of course, I'm not saying that they don't have Misty school in their hearts. It's just that people strive for greater heights, and water flows to lower depths. Beidou school stands at the forefront of the path of immortality and occupies Mount Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. If they know that they can cultivate an immortal mansion, I'm afraid not everyone will fight to the death. Oyen nodded slightly. Also, with the relationship between sect leader Zhang of the Misty school and sect leader Zhang of your sect, I'm sure they'll be able to accept the transfer from the Misty school to the Beidou school. Elder Hu said with a smile. Sect leader Zhang, to be honest, there are some drawbacks in sending young disciples here. If it were any other sect, our Misty school would never dare to do such a thing. It's easy to cause misunderstandings. When Wenhai cupped his hands and said, However, I'm thinking the same thing as you, Elder Hu. Beidou school doesn't lack anything except for manpower. As for the development of Beidou school, if we only rely on Miss O, Miss Nya, Shui Tiantian, and the others, I'm afraid we won't be able to develop even a little bit in the next 10 years. Elder Hu made the suggestion, and gang leader Zhang also agreed. I think it's really feasible, so I made the suggestion. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Zhang Xiaohu's smiling face and knew that this guy must know that she had the soul-absorbing pill and wasn't afraid of spies, so she agreed. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua did not care about what tricks the ethereal sect had up their sleeves. After all, in this immortal abode, with the mansion guarding spiritual steel in hand, everyone could only surrender and be manipulated. Zhang Xiaohua still had a lot of trust in Wenhai. Seeing Wenhai's explanation, she nodded slightly and said, I understand what swordsman once said. Since it's the Misty school's kindness, I won't be disrespectful. Hee, that's great, Wenhai said with a smile. As for the handover of the 302 disciples, let Oyen be in charge after the secret plane, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Thank you for your trust, sect leader Zhang. Elder Hu cupped his hands and said, Only if sect leader Zhang accepts these 302 disciples will we have the face to discuss the second matter with sect leader Zhang. Elder Hu, what's the second matter? Please enlighten us. Oyen nodded. Speaking of the second matter, it has something to do with Valley Master Nye of Rejuvenation Valley. Elder Hu glanced at Nye Qianyu and said with a smile, What about Rejuvenation Valley? Nye Qianyu asked curiously. A month ago, Rejuvenation Valley visited our Misty School and formed an alliance with our Misty School. Oh, of course, our Misty School isn't a member of their Yuli Alliance. It's a mutually supportive relationship. Hu Yuni explained, when I heard Valley Master Nya mention the relationship between Rejuvenation Valley and the Incense Cult, I suddenly had an epiphany. I want to form a complementary relationship with Beidou School, just like Rejuvenation Valley and the Incense Cult. Zhang Xiaohua raised her eyebrows. Nye Qinyu asked, Elder Hu, what are your plans? It's simple. Every year, our Misty School can help Beidou School select young disciples with outstanding aptitudes and send them to Beidou School until Beidou School has the ability to select disciples. What does our Beidou School have to do? Oyen asked after a moment of contemplation. Every year, your school needs to help our Misty School promote 5 disciples to step onto the path of immortality. 5 disciples? Oyen shook her head and said, how many immortal path disciples are there in the pugilistic world? Your Misty School wants our Beidou School to promote 5 immortal path disciples every year. That's impossible. Oyen didn't report this to Zhang Xiaohua. Instead, she directly denied it. This, Hu Yuni thought for a moment, then smiled bitterly and said, actually, what our Misty School can do for Beidou School is too little. We can only show the strength of our Misty School in the next few years. When the Beidou School's young disciples are fully developed, our Misty School won't be able to catch the eye of Beidou School. So, overall, I'm afraid that our Misty School won't have too many Immortal Path experts. Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. Just as she was about to agree, Oyen said, Elder Hu, that's not right. As the saying goes, small streams flow long. Our Beidou School's disciples are all focused on cultivation. I'm afraid that we won't interfere much with worldly affairs. If our Misty School does a good job, we might be able to hand over everything to the Misty School in the future. Elder Hu was overjoyed when he heard this. He smiled and said, if that's the case, the number of disciples per year can be reduced to 4. 2. Oyen said, our Beidou School still has its own disciples. 2 is indeed too little. How about 3? Elder Hu said earnestly. This. Oyen turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. She seemed to be satisfied and wanted Zhang Xiaohua to make the decision. Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, I'll allow this, but there are still some other conditions. Approved? Hu Yuni was stunned. Then he was overjoyed. How many Immortal Path disciples could there be in the pugilistic world? Beidou School could actually let 3 Misty School disciples enter the path of immortality every year. Not to mention 5 years. In just 3 years, 9 disciples would enter the path of immortality. This was comparable to the incense cult. Zhang Xiaohu didn't reveal Hu Yuni's bottom line in advance, but judging from his surprised expression, it was obviously beyond his expectations. Yes, I'll allow it. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, not only that, everyone in the Misty School in the main hall, as long as it's possible, I can help you enter the path of immortality. Wen Hai, Lu Yueming, and Xue Qing's faces were flushed. They knew that Zhang Xiaohu was about the same age as them. If Zhang Xiaohu could enter the path of immortality, then so could they. Li Jian and the others were already old, so Zhang Xiaohua's words were obviously meant for them. Hu Yuni, Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, and Madame Qin were also overjoyed. The incense cult, and between the clouds and the water, both had methods to enter the path of immortality through martial arts. Beidou School must have some methods as well. Thank you, sect leader Zhang. Everyone bowed. Don't be in such a hurry to thank me. I's help isn't without conditions. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, the things you need to raise your cultivation to the path of immortality must be provided by your Misty School. Also, the techniques and pills used by the 3 disciples must also be provided by your Misty School. This. Hu Yuni and Li Jian were at a loss for words. They didn't know that 3 things were needed for 3 disciples to enter the path of immortality, so they could only turn to look at Zhang Xiaohu. Zhang Xiao nodded and said, these conditions, my Misty School agrees. After all, these things need a lot of money. so there's no reason for Beidou School to pay for my Misty School. Since sect leader Zhang agrees, then it's easy to handle. Zhang Xiaohua clapped her hands and smiled. Zhang Xiaohu glared at him, but didn't say anything. Seeing that the two factions had reached an agreement, Oyen was also happy. She asked, "Then what's the third suggestion, Elder Hu?" "Oh, this third suggestion isn't anything special. It's just an addition to the first two suggestions. It's the icing on the cake." Hu Yuni thought for a moment and said, "If sect leader Zhang doesn't have any objections to the first two suggestions, my Misty School and Beta School would like to further form an alliance. Under the premise of complementing each other, we can advance and retreat together in the Jianghu, going through thick and thin together." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, he couldn't help but frown. He had previously told Zhang Xiaohu about this relationship, hoping that Beidou School and Misty School could become close brothers, just like he and his second brother. However, he had only said it casually back then. Moreover, Beidou School hadn't been established yet, so it was easy for him to say it without thinking about the consequences of his words. Now that he heard Hu Yuni and Oyan's negotiation, Zhang Xiaohua realized that his previous thoughts might have been too simple. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's frown, Oyan couldn't make a decision. She thought for a moment and said, "Elder Hu, can you elaborate further?" Hu Yuni also said seriously, "Actually, this third suggestion is something we suddenly thought of before we came. Since our Misty School's sect leader Zhang and your sect's sect leader Zhang are blood brothers, we dare to make this suggestion. I can't explain it in detail, but if our Misty School is in danger of being wiped out, I hope that your sect leader will lend us a helping hand. Our Misty School will also take responsibility for all of your sect's trivial matters in the Jianghu." When Oyen heard this, she frowned. This exchange seemed to be extremely disproportionate. The Misty School had only helped Beidou School with a simple matter, but in exchange they had asked for Beidou School's help when their own sect was about to be wiped out. This really didn't make sense. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian. Come. Chapter 1208. Seeing Oyan's hesitation, Hu Yuni smiled and said, "Actually, Beidou School seems to be at a disadvantage, but if you think about it carefully, under the leadership of sect leader Zhang, our Misty School's strength has increased greatly. Other than the Dalan Temple, the Incense Sect, the Righteous Alliance, and the Tenryu Sect, no other sect has dared to provoke us. We won't be facing such a crisis for many years, but your sect can come to our Misty School at any time." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "Elder Hu is right. Although our Beidou School has been established, our strength is limited. Elder Hu must have seen the future of our Beidou School and thought of this alliance. Moreover, in the Jianghu today, after the Battle of Yaoshan Immortal Abode, the strength of the various sects has been greatly affected. Not to mention the small sects among the large sects, the Righteous Alliance has lost the strength to compete with the Misty School. If we talk about sect annihilation, I'm afraid the Misty School won't be in the same situation as before." Then, Zhang Xiaohua looked at Zhang Xiaohu and said, "As long as my second brother is the sect leader of the Misty School, I may not care about the ordinary crisis of the Misty School, but when it comes to sect annihilation, how can I not take action? Sect leader Zhang is right. This old man knows, but life is limited. As long as sect leader Zhang is in charge of Yaoshan Immortal Abode, you can say this, but what about the future? My Misty School has been around for tens of thousands of years, and the Beidou School has been around for at least tens of thousands of years. The future is not something we can think of. This old man is doing this because I want the Misty School and the Beidou School to be in harmony for generations, and to be in alliance forever." Zhang Xiaohua sighed and shook her head. "Harmony for generations, an alliance forever. This is too difficult. Your Misty School's founder, Yang Haoya, and the Incense Sect's founder, Yu Mingxin. Their relationship is extraordinary. Even the Shindao Sect's founder, Wan Wuxin, came from the same place as those two founders. Their relationship is, needless to say, their thoughts back then, weren't they the same as yours? But what happened to the Shindao sect? What happened to your Misty school? Anyone in the Jianghu who has some sort of inheritance knows this very well. Elder Hu, do you think that we could do better than them? Sect leader Zhang is right. Actually, when this old man came, I also thought about a lot of things. But everything depends on one's effort. If this old man doesn't do it now, in a few years or even 10 years, I won't have the chance to do it again. If we just rely on the relationship between the two sect leaders, I'm afraid it won't be very reliable. For both the Beta school and the Misty school, this is extremely unrealistic. Hu Yuni said sincerely. So, this old man knows that this matter is a bit ridiculous and unrealistic. But for my Misty school, this old man is willing to do this stupid thing. No matter what the relationship between the Misty school and the Beta school is in the future, this old man has tried his best. This old man has no regrets. Good. Hu Yuni's words made Zhang Xiaohua's blood boil. She stood up and said, Elder Hu, this old man has tried his best. This old man has no regrets sounds very pleasing to my ears. Although my Beta school starting point is very high, but after all, it's congenitally deficient and has a weak foundation. These are exactly what the Misty school has. If my sect and your sect can learn from each other's strengths to make up for our weaknesses, we'll be able to complement each other. Oh yeah, and this matter is settled. Discuss it with Elder Hu later and see what to do. Yes, senior sect leader. Oyen was extremely happy when she heard this. Also, as for the new disciples, you'll see how to recruit them and how to operate them. These things should be handled by Home Master Shui, right? You'll have to communicate with him. Yes, I won't let the two sect leaders down. Shui Qing bowed and said. Hu Yuni's face was flushed. He said somewhat embarrassedly, Sect leader Zhang, this old man has a small request. Zhang Xiaohua said curiously. Elder Hu, please speak. How is Shui Tiantian now? He has been by my side and has always been guided by me. Now that he's suddenly left, I'm a little worried. I thought it was something big. Zhang Xiaohua laughed and waved her hand. A ray of light flashed, and Shui Tiantian appeared in front of everyone sitting cross-legged. Tiantian, yes, master. Shui Tiantian opened his eyes and was stunned when he saw everyone from the Misty School. However, he still bowed to Zhang Xiaohua and said, May I know why master has called this disciple over? Misty School's elder who missed you and wanted to come and see you. Grandmaster. Shui Tiantian turned around and looked at Elder Hu's familiar face. His eyes were wet as he bowed and said, Greetings, Elder Hu. Good child, get up, get up. But Yuni's eyes were also red. He helped Shui Tiantian up and asked, Tiantian, are you all right? Reporting, Grandmaster, this disciple is fine. Shui Tiantian finally couldn't help but call out Grandmaster. Then, he felt that it was inappropriate and turned to look at Zhang Xiaohua. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was only smiling and didn't mind, he was relieved. As long as you're fine. You don't have to be too greedy for cultivation. You're still young. Slowly build your foundation. Don't be like before. Keep the hatred in your heart. Grandmaster, Shui Tiantian couldn't help but cry. He knelt down and kowtowed. Grandmaster, this disciple is really sorry. You treat this disciple like family. But this disciple is unscrupulous and fed you poison. This disciple deserves to die. Sigh, don't mention the past anymore. Hu Yuni sighed. This isn't your fault. It's all Shui Yupeng's fault. He was blinded by greed and used you as a tool. What crime have you committed? But he's still this disciple's father. This disciple thinks about it day and night. I don't have the face to see Grandmaster again. Actually, thinking about it again, Shui Yupeng had no choice but to do this for your safety. This old man. Sai, forget it. He's already gone. My poison and serious injuries have been cured by your master. You don't have to blame yourself too much. This old man has no son and has always treated you like a grandson. As long as you're doing well in Beidu school, this old man is happier than anything else. Speaking of which, During the years when Hu Yuni led the Misty School's disciples to exile, he had been carefully cultivating Shui Tiantian, treating him as the future hope of the Misty School. After a long time, he naturally developed feelings for him. Although Shui Yupeng's scheme was involved in the end, it was impossible for Hu Yuni to resent Shui Tiantian. This disciple knows. This disciple is very happy in Beidou School, Shui Tiantian said with tears on his face. Suddenly, as if he had something fun to share with the adults, Shui Tiantian couldn't hold back the joy on his face. He looked at Hu Yuni and said, "Grandmaster, this disciple has something to tell you." Seeing how Shui Tiantian seemed to be hiding an excellent toy and wanted to show it to Hu Yuni in hopes of receiving his praise, Hu Yuni's heart softened. He recalled how Shui Tiantian would always show off to him when he was young before he mastered a move. Hu Yuni's tone became even more benevolent. "What's wrong? Tiantian, what kind of martial art did you master?" "Yes, Grandmaster." Shui Tiantian was just about to say something when he thought of something. He quickly turned around and looked at Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know and only nodded slightly to express her agreement. Only then did Shui Tiantian turn around and say with a smile, "When this disciple was following Grandmaster, Grandmaster always said, if this disciple mastered martial arts in the future, I would be able to inherit the Misty School's immortal path and step onto the immortal path. You also said that your greatest wish was to let this disciple step onto the immortal path, to revitalize the Misty School." "Sai, that's right. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have almost fought with sect leader Zhang and let the Righteous Alliance take advantage of me for nothing." Hu Yuni sighed and said, "At that time, my body was already on the verge of death. If I didn't make arrangements for you, my Misty School would never be able to rise again. However, fortunately, sect leader Zhang is the pillar of my Misty School. This old man has long been relieved. Grandmaster, this disciple has already stepped onto the immortal path a few days ago," Shui Tiantian said with a smile. "Ah." Hu Yuni was stunned and immediately became ecstatic. "Tiantian, you're also a person of the immortal path?" "Yes, Grandmaster, this disciple is stupid. I even entered the immortal path after senior brother Ji." "It's nothing," Shui Tiantian said shyly. "Ji Xiaohua?" Hu Yuni was even more shocked. He also stepped onto the immortal path? However, he immediately felt that it was inappropriate and immediately cupped his hands at Zhang Xiaohua. "Sect leader Zhang, this old man's tone is a little reckless. It's because I've seen Xiaohua before. He doesn't have any foundation in martial arts at all. That's why I'm so surprised." It's fine, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Then, "Sect leader Zhang, how many of your disciples have yet to step onto the immortal path?" Li Jian suppressed his surprise and couldn't help but probe. In my Beidou School, other than martial nephew Zhang Byron, who's still young, the other 6 disciples have already reached the immortal path," Nie Qinyu said proudly. Everyone in the Misty School, including Zhang Xiaohu, looked at each other. It had only been a month since the Beidou School was established, and it had already cultivated 6 disciples of the immortal path. And these disciples were all known by the Misty School. No wonder they easily agreed to cultivate 3 disciples of the immortal path for the Misty School every year. "It's so easy for the Beidou School. Xiaohua, you're too unkind," Zhang Xiaohu said with a frown. "Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian. Come." Chapter 1209. Second brother, this is a matter between Beidou School and Misty School, not a private matter between you and me, Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile. Zhang Xiao thought for a moment and nodded. Master Zhang is right. That's exactly what we should do. Since Master Zhang approves, it's easy to do. Let Nie Qinyu and Yin communicate with you about these things. We're all family. Just do what we've been doing for the past decades, and let the disciples worry about the future. Zhang Xiaohua touched her chin and said, "By the way, it's almost time. Are elderly and others going to the secluded plain? Zhang Xiaohu shook his head and said, Elderly has just recovered from his injury, and his internal strength has not fully recovered. This time, he's just going to talk about cooperation with Beta School. He definitely can't go to the secluded plain. Then he pointed to Aunt Qin and Shui Qing and said, Hall Master Qin and Hall Master Shui also came to talk about things. They won't go. Well, in this case, Elderly, are you going back now? Or, Master Zhang, I haven't been to Holy Realm Dweller's Mansion yet. How about I stay here for a few more days? Hu Yuni said with a smile. Of course, Tian Tian also misses you very much. You can go back with my second brother after the secluded plain. Zhang Xiaowa nodded and said, and I'll have to trouble Hall Master Shui and Hall Master Qin with many things. Let's strike while the iron is hot and draw up a charter for future operations. Everyone in Misty School was overjoyed. The earlier they formed an alliance with Beidou School, the earlier the Misty School could improve their strength, and the earlier they could set foot on the path of immortality. Well, second brother, shall we go now? Zhang Xiaowa got up and asked. Let's go. Chang'e and Chun won't go. It's only a day's work in the secluded site. I'll see my parents when I come back. Zhang Xiao nodded and said, By the way, Xiaohua, you'd better dress up like a senior who had a relationship with my Misty School. The Fragrance Cult and the Dalan Temple both have immortal masters. If my Misty School doesn't have any, I'm afraid there will be some twists and turns in the secret plane. Sure. Zhang Xiaohua nodded. In any case, they all know that there is such an expert of the immortal Tao. As he spoke, Zhang Xiaohua waved his hand. Aunt Qin, Shui Qing, and the others disappeared and were sent to the side of the lake. Then he sent Zhang Xiaohu and the others to the foot of Yao Mountain and said, Wait here for a while. I will wash up and dress up now. Sure enough, within a few minutes, a handsome Taoist pan and with a moderate figure appeared in front of Zhang Xiaohu and the others. Li Jian and the others had only heard about it from Zhang Xiaohu, but they had never seen him. At this time, they only felt that it was incredible. Just now, he was Zhang Xiaohua, but in a moment he became a completely different person. Zhang Xiaohu seemed to be used to it. He glanced at him and said, Taoist Pan, this place is not far from the secluded site. We still need to cover our tracks. I'm not familiar with this road. Deputy Gang Leader 1 and Deputy Gang Leader Liu have been there before. Please lead the way. What do you think? Well, I'll listen to Gang Leader Zhang's instructions. Zhang Xiaohua whispered. Then, Zhang Xiaohua took out a few jade talismans and handed them to everyone. He smiled and said, I have a feeling that this secluded site may not be safe, and there may be something that I can't take care of. This is the jade talisman of the way of immortality. I just learned it recently. It's quite magical to use. Take it. Take them. If you encounter any danger, just crush them. If nothing unexpected happens, they should be able to protect you for 2 hours. Everyone took it and was stunned. The jade talisman looked like a rabbit. Zhang Xiaohua's face was burning. He whispered, Hey, this jade talisman is not very successful. If it's perfect, it should look like a rabbit. Is it really a rabbit? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, I thought I was wrong. Then, he carefully put the jade talisman into his arms and said, A rabbit is not bad. It's better than an ingot. Second brother, Zhang Xiaohua shouted. The others were puzzled, but seeing Zhang Xiaohu's treasured look, they also carefully put away the jade talisman. Let's go. Zhang Xiaohu ignored Zhang Xiaohua and looked around. He waved his hand and said, Vice Gang Leader 1, please lead the way. At this time, the sky was getting dark and the evening mist was heavy. Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, Wen Hai, Lu Yiming, and Zhang Xiaohu used their Qing Gong to hide their presence and went to 5 Claw Peak. Zhang Xiaohua hid her figure and followed Zhang Xiaohu's back. The night had already fallen, and the round moon was gradually moving towards the sky. Tonight was a clear and sunny day. Under the water-like moonlight, the 5 Claw Peak peered straight into the night sky. A chilly wind blew past, blowing the withered grass and yellow leaves into the air. A few afterimages flashed past. and then their silhouettes appeared in the moonlight. Below the thumb peak, on a large piece of flat land, Zhang Xiaohu and the others stopped next to a crouching ox rock. Reporting to sect leader Zhang, "It's here." Last time, lay practitioner Yiming said it was next to this crouching ox rock. Looking at the crouching ox rock, which was exactly the same as it was a few years ago, Wenhai couldn't help but feel emotional. He pointed at the rock and said to Zhang Xiaohu, "Good." Zhang Xiaohu looked at the sky and asked, "It's already past 9. Where are the people from the Dalan Temple and incense cult?" Before he finished speaking, Zhang Xiaohua whispered something to him. "Oh, understood." Zhang Xiaohu nodded slightly, looked around, and jumped onto the crouching ox rock. He sat down cross-legged, as if he was regulating his qi circulation. Li Jian and the others were in a protective position, surrounding the crouching ox rock. After half an hour, a slight rustling sound came from the east. When Zhang Xiaohu opened his eyes, he saw several Dalan Temple monks in monk robes had quietly appeared not far from the crouching ox rock. Under the moonlight, they were Master Chong Sheng, Great Master Chong Gong, Master Chong Xing, and 3 skinny monks. Zhang Xiaohu had already received information that these 3 skinny monks were Master Tiangang, Master Yuandao, and Master Yuanming. He immediately felt deep veneration for them. He jumped up from the crouching ox rock and went forward to salute them. Zhang Xiaohu from the Misty School greets Master Chong Sheng and all the other masters. Master Chong Sheng and the others floated in the air and arrived at the scene. When they used their divine senses, they noticed Zhang Xiaohua standing not far behind Zhang Xiaohu. When they saw Zhang Xiaohu coming over to salute them, only Master Chong Sheng put his palms together and smiled. "Sect leader Zhang, you're early." "I wouldn't dare. I'm a junior in Jianghu. Since I've been summoned by my seniors, of course I have to wait early," Zhang Xiaohu said respectfully. Although the Dalan Temple was one of the participants in destroying the Misty School that day, Zhang Xiaohu did not directly confront the Dalan Temple. There were not many monks that day, and Master Chong Sheng had a good reputation in Jianghu. He did not allow Zhang Xiaohu to be disrespectful. "Amitabha." Master Chong Sheng chanted the name of Buddha. He then raised his head and said, "How should I address all of you? Why haven't I seen you before? My name is Panin. I've been cultivating in seclusion. I'm a nameless itinerant cultivator. It's normal that the elders don't know because I have an old relationship with the seniors of the Misty School. I also received some favors from the seniors of the Misty School. By chance, I found out that the Misty School was in trouble. That's why I lent a helping hand. However, I don't care about worldly affairs. The affairs of Jianghu are intertwined with gratitude and grudges. It's hard to say who's right and who's wrong. Your grudges. I don't care. Fellow Taoist, you're very generous. Thousands of people from the Misty School, all of them recovered their martial arts. Even I feel ashamed of my inferiority. How can I be a nameless itinerant cultivator? However, I don't know if the Misty School has passed down any immortal cultivation techniques for generations." Master Tiangang said in a low voice. "Hee. Master Tiangang's name is well known throughout the world. I've admired you for a long time. However, I don't like fighting and lack the desire to win. Master, I'm afraid we're not fated to meet." Just as they were talking, another voice sounded. "Master Panin, you live up to your name. I've admired you for a long time." Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and saw a group of people slowly approaching from the mountain path not far away. They were the Misty School's disciples who had arrived earlier. Looking at Nanjing Yi, who was speaking, Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "You're just a piece of trash. How can you live up to your name? None eyes admiration, but I can't accept it." While they were talking, the Misty School's disciples had arrived. They were Nanjing Yi, Nun Shuqing, Nun Shuezhen, Peacock, Chun Chun, and Yuyan. "Fellow Taoist, your name is spread throughout Jianghu before the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. I don't know how many people admire you, but I wonder, why didn't you come to the fight for the Immortal Mansion? If you did, I'm afraid that the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion wouldn't belong to Beta School anymore. Ha ha, the appearance of the Immortal Mansion can only be obtained by the virtuous." I have never dared to consider myself virtuous, and I'm used to cultivating in a quiet place. As for the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion, it's better to keep it as bait for others." Hearing this, Master Tiangang, Nun Shuqing, and the others' faces changed slightly. The Yaoshan Immortal Mansion wasn't just their bait, it was the bait for the entire Jianghu. All the sects in Jianghu were defeated at Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. If there was any sect that benefited, other than the Beta School, it would be the Misty School, that didn't participate in the fight for the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion at all. Nanjing, he stood not far away, coldly looking at Zhang Xiaohu, and calmly said, "Sect leader Zhang, it's only been a few months since we parted at Sun Gong. Are you well?" Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohu smiled, but didn't go forward. He cupped his hands and saluted. "Ever since I left Lingering Fragrance Peak, I've been very well. Thank you for your concern, Nun. As for the grudge between the Misty School and the Incense Cult, I don't think I need to say anything. I've already told the inner sect disciple you sent, so there's no need for me to repeat myself. Hee. Sect leader Zhang's methods are good. Even I admire you greatly. In addition, this sect leader Pan and behind you is actually playing with the incense cult in the palm of his hand. I truly admire you. Nun Jing, do you think my Misty School's torment is light?" Lu Qingyang shouted. "If it weren't for my sect leader Zhang's wisdom and courage, my Misty School would be..." Chapter 12:10. Cough, cough. Zhang Xiaohu coughed softly, and Lu Qingyang's voice immediately softened. Hee. I've already told you about the Misty School at Lingering Fragrance Peak. The reason behind it isn't as simple as you think. If you're talking about torment, there are also people like Master Longevity from the Dalan Temple. You can ask them too. Sigh. Sect leader Zhang, I feel guilty about what happened in the past. Everything was used by others. I'm sure sect leader Zhang already knows about it, but I don't want to explain. Master Longevity smiled bitterly. All right, the mastermind from back then is here. Nanjing, he said softly. Sure enough, Zhang Xiaohu had already sensed something. From the side of the crouching Ox Rock, in the forest to the south, a few figures were also flying over with lightness skills. It was Alliance leader Zhang San from the Alliance of Righteous Sects. When enemies meet, their eyes turn red. Li Jian and the others narrowed their eyes when they saw the familiar figures. Lu Qingyang's fists were already clenched. Cough, cough. Master Longevity coughed and said softly, Sect leader Zhang, today is a big day for the 4 sections. Don't delay the great cause of the Misty School because of some small matter. Of course, our ethereal sect has always prioritized the big picture. How can we create more trouble at this time? Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohu looked at Nanjing Yi and Master Longevity and said with a smile, All right, Sect leader Zhang, how are Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng? How are my thousands of Wuming Hall disciples? This time, when our inner disciples went over, they actually avoided meeting them. I'm surprised. Nanjing Yi suddenly asked. Nun, you're really forgetful. Ming Qing and Gao Kunheng admire our Misty School's legacy and specially joined our Misty School. They've always relied on the inner disciples in spreading fragrance cult. When they came to our Misty School, they became the masters. Right now, they're carefree on Misty Peak. How can they have the time to care about you? Zhang Xiaohu had already thought of a countermeasure. When she heard this, Nanjing, he almost exploded in anger. Nanjing Yi's voice grew louder. Abbess, today is a big day for the 4 sections. Don't delay the great cause of the incense cult because of some small matter. Abbess, please conduct yourself with dignity. Zhang Xiaohu looked at Abbess Jingyi and said with a smile. Nanjing Yi's lips trembled. Cough, cough. When Master Longevity saw this, he quickly coughed a few times. He turned to Alliance leader Zhang San and said, Alliance leader Zhang San, why are you late? Sigh, Master. Alliance Master Zhang San looked at the 5 inner force experts beside him and smiled bitterly. Ever since we parted ways at Yaoshan Mountain, our alliance has been hiding nearby. But Bai Yinqiu from between the clouds and the water seems to have sensed our presence. He has been searching for our whereabouts all this time. If it was before, our alliance might not have been afraid. But now, our alliance did not bring enough manpower. And there are also immortal experts between the clouds and the water. Our alliance can only endure. Between the clouds and the water, actually sense something? Master Longevity was slightly stunned. He immediately released his divine sense and looked for a while. He then turned to Master Tiangang and asked, "Master, is there anything strange around here?" Master Tiangang shook his head slightly. Master Longevity let out a sigh of relief. He knew that Alliance leader Zhang San did not have an immortal divine sense. If he was being followed, he might not know. Master Tiangong's divine sense was the strongest among all of them. If he did not sense anything, then it must be nothing. All right, the people of our 4 sects have gathered. Let's go to the secret plane according to our original agreement. Master Longevity waved his hand and said, "No matter what grudges there were between our 4 sects, before we come out of the secret plane, there must be no friction. Everyone knows that Beidou School has taken the initiative in the Yaoshan Immortal Abode. This secret plane is the key to the revival of our 4 sections. If anyone messes up this important matter, the other 3 sects will join forces to punish them." Alliance leader Zhang Sin stood not far from Zhang Xiaohu. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but after hearing Master Longevity's words, he swallowed his words. "Let's go." Master Longevity waved his sleeves and took the lead. Master Tiangang and the others also floated in the air and followed. Then the incense cult followed. Alliance leader Zhang San was about to move when he heard Zhang Xiaohu say in a low voice, "Does the martial arts sect have to walk before the immortal path?" As he spoke, he leaped up and used the ethereal steps, which was comparable to the levitation technique. He lightly brought Li Jian and the others with him. "You?" Alliance Master Zhang San was furious. Just as he was about to regain some of his dignity, he felt a frosty gaze sweep past Zhang Xiaohu. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's handsome face, he jumped. "Daoist Pan?" Alliance leader Zhang San almost groaned. "Oof." Zhang Xiaohua snorted coldly and used the levitation technique. Her body floated in the air and followed behind Lu Yueming, heading towards the direction of the ring finger of 5 Claws Peak. This, Alliance leader Zhang San was a little dumbfounded. Looking at their backs, he couldn't help but grit his teeth and touch his chest a few times. Then he waved his hand and said in a low voice, "Let's go." Everyone's Qigong was excellent, and they even had the levitation technique. In less than half an hour, they arrived at the dense forest in the middle of the ring finger peak. The dark and silent forest was like a monster that had not moved since ancient times. It was lying there quietly. Even the brilliance of snow could not cover the forest. Zhang Xiaohua used her divine sense to scan the forest. She felt that the forest was exactly the same as when she first came. There was nothing special about it. However, when her divine sense swept past every jujube tree, a trace of uneasiness was transmitted from her divine sense to her heart. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She thought of the indescribable throbbing in her heart before the Misty School's visit. She couldn't help but be shocked. She thought to herself, could it be that tonight's trip is a great omen? The more she thought about it, the more mysterious the jujube forest became in her eyes. Faction leader Zhang, this jujube forest. I'm afraid there's something strange about it. Zhang Xiaohua said in a low voice. With eyes cultivation, it's difficult to see the truth of this place, if it's possible, without waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to finish. Master Changsheng said in a low voice, "Everyone, this place is an ancient divine array. If you don't have the map that leads to the array, no matter what your cultivation is, as long as you enter the forest, you'll definitely die. There are records of this place in the ancient books of the Dalan Temple. It's also very clear that you should never take the risk to enter." "You're right, Master Changsheng. Our incense cult also has similar records. Moreover, this sheepskin scroll has been lost tens of thousands of years ago, so we've all put this forest at the back of our minds." Now that the map has reappeared, it's time for our 4 schools of immortal Tao to revive. Nanjing nodded. All right. According to the ancient books, this forest array can only be opened under the morning sun on the 15th day of the first lunar month. At any other time, it's a dead array. Therefore, we'll have to wait here until tomorrow morning to enter the array. Master Chang Sheng continued. By the way, someone from the Misty School entered the array a few years ago. Is this old monk's words true? Reporting to Master Chang Sheng, our vice faction leader when One Hai entered this array a few years ago. It's exactly as you said. Zhang Xiao looked at Wen Hai and stepped forward. That's good. Since someone from the Misty School has entered, tomorrow morning, let's invite the Misty School to be the first to enter. What do you all think? Everyone hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Well, since someone from a Misty School has entered, I wonder if you can tell us in detail about the layout of the secret plane? Master Chang Sheng asked with a smile. Haha, Master. After we enter, if there are treasures, how should we distribute them? We haven't finished discussing these matters, yet you want the Misty School to provide information. I'm afraid it's not appropriate, Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. Oh, Master Chang Sheng was stunned. Nanjing, he said apologetically. Since faction leader Zhang didn't want to see us, we could only send our inner disciples to pass the message. We haven't told faction leader Zhang the specific details yet. Yes, Master Chang Sheng nodded slightly and said, according to the ancient books, the secret plane is quite large. Some places have their own universe. It's far from the size of the mountain we see now. Therefore, when the 4 sects enter, we'll divide whatever we see equally. If we can't divide it equally, the sect that wants to get the remaining items will have to compensate the other 3 sections. As for the items within the restriction, it'll depend on each sect's actions. Whoever has the ability to take more will take it based on their ability. After he finished speaking, he said to Zhang Xiao, faction leader Zhang, what do you think of this method? Zhang Xiaohu was speechless. He looked at Master Chang Sheng, Great Master Chang Geng, and Master Chang Xing behind him. Well, there were also 3 skinny and shriveled masters. He felt bitter in his mouth. Was there a need to say more? The inside was full of immortal Tao restrictions. The Dalan Temple had come prepared. Of course, they would take the lead. However, thinking about the unpredictable Zhang Xiaohua, Zhang Xiaohu cupped his hands and said, of course, the secret plane? We have to rely on our own strength to fight for treasures. If we walk behind others, we'll only be blind. Then he glanced sideways at Alliance leader Zhang San. At this time, Alliance leader Zhang San had already calmed down as if he hadn't heard anything. He raised his head to look at the dense forest under the moonlight, his eyes full of admiration. Well, would Vice Faction Leader Wen please explain a little? Master Chang Sheng said with a smile. Yes, please wait a moment. Zhang Xiaohu turned his head and gave Wen Hai a look. Thus, when Wen Hai whispered about the last time they entered the dense forest, the process wasn't very detailed, and the objects inside were also vague. What? Is there only such a small place? Master Chang Sheng frowned. Are there only those old medicinal herbs inside? Nanjing, he was also shocked. Speaking of medicinal herbs, there were many in Yulon Grand Canyon. Her incense cult didn't need to mess around here. Reporting to the 2 seniors, this is indeed what this disciple saw back then. As for any restrictions, formations, or other immortal Tao methods, this disciple doesn't know. I reckon that Yinming Jusher back then might not know either. When Wen Hai said with a wry smile, well, that's indeed true. Master Chang Sheng and Nanjing both nodded. After a while, Master Chang Sheng asked apologetically, faction leader Zhang, this old monk has overstepped. I wonder, what did faction leader O obtain in this secret plane back then? Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. Chapter 1211. Humph, you destroyed the Tan family, Yiming Villa, and Wan Jianfeng. What? You don't know anything. Lu Qingyang coldly snorted. What? Jiang Hu is filled with grudges and vengeance. If you don't have strength, don't be blinded by greed and go looking for treasures. Otherwise, you'll only end up with your family destroyed. Nanjing, he also coldly snorted. Actually, I just want to confirm whether or not this jungle is worth the risk. Master Chang Sheng pulled a long face and asked. After thinking for a moment, Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said, Actually, it's nothing. It's just a few qi-generating pills and a few bone-strengthening pills. Hee. In addition to this, your school seems to have another jade box. Nanjing laughed. Zhang Xiaohu calmly said, Inside that jade box is a sword manual. My Misty School had already arranged for the young Eagle Hall disciples to practice it before Boss O passed away. Nanjing nodded slightly. It seemed that this sword manual, she knew about it. Yes, O Peng and the other's explosive increase in internal strength should be the effect of this qi-generating pill. Master Chang Sheng also nodded. Since this kind of pill is in the small house, there might be more hidden in the array. That's right, Vice Boss Wen, in the small house, what else is there? Nanjing, he asked again. This. Wenhai thought for a moment, then looked at Zhang Xiaohu and said, There's nothing in the house. Apart from some incense burners, a jade table, a square table, and 3 chairs, there's nothing else. At this point, Wenhai seemed to have thought of something and said excitedly, That's right, on the wall on the right, there are 3 portraits hanging. It's just that they're too old to be seen clearly. Portraits? Not only was Nanjing surprised, but Zhang Xiaohua, who was standing far behind them, was also surprised. Who are the people in the portraits? Nanjing, he asked nervously. This one seems to be a swordsman with a saber, another seems to be a scholar with a folding fan, and the last seems to be a masked woman. Wenhai thought for a moment and said, Is the woman holding something in her hand? Nun Shuqing asked. Oh, it seems it's a long whip. Ah. Nanjing and Nun Shuqing's faces were filled with joy. Seeing Wenhai's confusion, they couldn't help but sneer. That scholar with the folding fan is your Misty School's founder, Yang Haoya. You don't even know how to kowtow in front of him. This is really blasphemy against your founder. Me? Wenhai's expression changed. But, thinking that it was impossible for the other party to lie to him, he couldn't help but feel ashamed. Zhang Xiaohu laughed and said, Our Misty School's immortal inheritance has been lost for a long time. It's normal that deputy faction leader one has not seen the portrait of founding Master Yang. Could it be that all the inner disciples of your school have seen the portrait of founding Master Yu? Ancestral Master Moon? Nanjing, he was slightly stunned. She looked at Zhang Xiaohu in a different light. You actually know the name of the founder of the incense cult? Zhang Xiaohu smiled and said nothing. All right, since we know that there's a portrait of the founder of the immortal path in the secret land, then there must be something extremely important inside. We have a reason to take the risk and enter. Master Changsheng laughed and looked around. He walked to the north side of the forest and sat down cross-legged. The other masters also sat down next to him. Nanjing saw this and smiled. She led Peacock and the others to the opposite side of the Dalan Temple and sat down. When she was seated, she didn't forget to say in a low voice, Faction Leader Zhang, all the inner disciples of the incense cult have seen the portrait of founding Master Yu. Oh! Zhang Xiaohu was taken aback. Then, he remembered what Zhang Xiaohua said about the manor beside the carefree lake. I'm impressed. Zhang Xiaohu cupped his hands and led Li Jian and the others to form a triangle with the other 2 factions. Faction leader Zhang Xin couldn't get a word in edgewise. He waited for the 3 factions to sit down before finding a place to lead his disciples. However, when he saw Zhang Xiaohu not far away, he sighed and ordered his disciples to go first. He then walked to the side of the Misty School's disciples. What are you doing here? Lu Qingyang asked angrily. This humble one has something important to discuss with Faction Leader Zhang. Faction Leader Zhang San looked at Zhang Xiaohu behind Lu Qingyang and whispered, There's nothing to discuss. The Misty School and the Righteous Alliance are mortal enemies. Lu Qingyang scolded. There's no such thing as an eternal enemy in this Jianghu. How can there be an eternal ally? Faction leader Zhang San chuckled and said, "This humble one is just proposing a deal to faction leader Zhang. If faction leader Zhang doesn't agree, just listen. There's no need to take it seriously." Sigh. Zhang Xiaohu stood up and cupped his hands. Faction leader Zhang, there's really nothing to discuss between our two factions. If it weren't for the importance of this forest, we wouldn't have come at all. Hee. Since faction leader Zhang knows the importance of this forest, what if this humble one uses the things in the forest to make a deal with your faction? Faction leader Zhang San smiled. Zhang Xiaohu pretended to be surprised and said curiously, "The things in the forest are extremely important. Could it be that the righteous alliance has something more important than these things?" If faction leader Zhang is interested, this humble one will say it. Otherwise, this humble one will turn back. Faction leader Zhang, please speak. This lord really wants to hear it. Zhang Xiaohu smiled. Well, it's like this. The things in the secret plane, the righteous alliance owns 25% of them. If faction leader Zhang agrees to this humble one's deal, this humble one will give faction leader Zhang 10% of them. What do you think? Seeing that faction leader Zhang San was somewhat reluctant, Zhang Xiaohu's eyes narrowed, and he asked curiously, "What do you need this lord to do?" It's very simple. This humble one wants faction leader Zhang to return the thousands of disciples of the Righteous Alliance. What do you think? Bah! Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to speak, Lu Qingyang spat out thick phlegm and scolded, "Those are thousands of disciples. They're already the disciples of the Misty School's Martial Arts Hall and Great Martial Arts Hall. You just touch your lips, and you want me to return them to you? Moreover, we still don't know what's in the secret plane. How can those things be compared to these disciples?" That's right, faction leader Zhang. You see, this lord hasn't even opened his mouth, and Elder Lu has already seen that this deal is unfair. What else do we have to talk about? Zhang Xiaohu smiled. Faction leader Zhang San was slightly anxious and said in a low voice, "Faction leader Zhang, at first glance, this deal is indeed inappropriate. But think about it again. Although my thousands of disciples have already become the disciples of your two halls, but can you be at ease with them? Don't you still have to take out a lot of people to supervise them? Moreover, you still don't feel at ease letting them go. Rather than feeling this uncomfortable, it's better to directly let them go and return them to this humble one. Wouldn't it be better to obtain the treasures in this secret plane?" Seeing Zhang Xiaohu's face reveal a strange smile, he continued, "Moreover, although the number of these thousands of disciples is large, they're not of one mind. They can't be compared to the disciples cultivated by your Misty School. If you obtain some treasures in the secret plane, such as the chi-generating pill that you just spoke of, then all of a sudden, you can cultivate your trusted disciples into top-notch experts. Wouldn't that be much more convenient than using these thousands of disciples? As Elder Lu said just now, who knows how many treasures there are in this secret plane? Look at the posture of the Dalan Temple, and then look at the posture of the cult of incense. Faction leader Zhang, don't you think that there's a huge secret in this secret plane? If our two factions don't work together, then wouldn't we be eaten up by the other two factions until nothing is left? Of course, this humble one can't guarantee that there are enough treasures inside that can be compared to the thousands of disciples. However, for the thousands of useless disciples, I think that faction leader Zhang should take this risk." Zhang Xiaohu revealed a thoughtful expression. Seeing this situation, Alliance leader Zhang sent added fuel to the fire. Faction leader Zhang, this is a ladder that our alliance is handing to your noble faction. We know that your Misty School's strength has increased greatly, and our Righteous Alliance has suffered heavy losses. However, if our Righteous Alliance stacks everything on a single throw and attacks your Misty School with all our strength, do you think those thousands of disciples you've recruited will listen to you or to our alliance? This. Zhang Xiaohu pretended to panic. Haha, of course, this is just our alliance's assumption. If we really do this, our Righteous Alliance will suffer heavy losses. I'm afraid that we won't be far from being destroyed. This isn't something that our alliance wants to see. Presumably, Faction leader Zhang won't do this and let the Dalan Temple and the cult of incense reap the benefits. Alliance leader Zhang San laughed. 20%. Zhang Xiaohu seemed to understand Alliance leader Zhang San's meaning. He also knew that Alliance leader Zhang San would fight to the death, so he called out decisively. Alliance leader Zhang San was stunned, then laughed softly. Faction leader Zhang is indeed a smart person. No wonder even Abbess Jingyi had to suffer at your hands. However, our righteous alliance only has 25% in total. I don't think there's any hope for those formations and restrictions. So, 20% is really too much. Alliance leader Zhang San, these are thousands of disciples. If it were a few hundred, I would have agreed long ago. Why would I waste my breath here? Haha, if it were a few hundred, our alliance wouldn't have come here and lowered our face to make this deal with you. Forget it. Who told our alliance to be in the wrong first? 15% is our bottom line. If you don't, we'll turn around right now. Alliance leader Zhang San turned around and was about to leave. Don't. Zhang Xiaohu pulled Alliance leader Zhang San back and laughed. 15% it is. To be honest, these thousands of disciples are troublesome in my Misty School. If the Righteous Alliance takes them back, I'll be more than happy. All right, faction leader Zhang San is straightforward. Let's clap our hands and make an oath. Alliance leader Zhang San raised his right hand. Zhang Xiaohu also raised his right hand. Just as they were about to clap hands, Li Jian reminded them. Faction leader Zhang San, you must consider this carefully. Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. Alliance leader Zhang San raised his hand, and their palms collided. Alliance leader Zhang San retracted his right hand and cupped his hands. Once this matter is settled, our alliance will send a disciple to receive them. I hope faction leader Zhang San won't go back on his words. You? Zhang Xiaohu retracted his right hand, and a look of regret appeared on his face. Ha! Alliance leader Zhang San chuckled and returned to his disciple's side. He seemed to have a card up his sleeve and knew that Zhang Xiaohua would definitely agree to it. However, Zhang Xiaohua, who was at the side, was already overjoyed. Please cast a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, a tip. Chapter 12:12. Looking at Zhang Xiaohu's remorseful face and his whispered explanation to Li Jian and the others, Zhang Xiaohua almost laughed out loud. After these thousands of disciples returned to the Righteous Tao Alliance, they would become the backbone of the Righteous Tao Alliance. If they were to nurture their own team one by one, in a few years, the Righteous Tao Alliance would already belong to Ethereal Sect, even without Ethereal Sect attacking. The Dalan Temple and the Incense Cult seemed to know that the leader of the Alliance of Righteous Sects, Zhang Xiaohu, had something to discuss with the Misty School. Therefore, they lowered their heads and regulated their breathing, ignoring the whispers between Zhang Xiaohu and the elders of the Misty School. Beside the quiet forest, the low, intermittent chirping of insects served as a foil to the mystery of the forest. Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. She extended her divine sense and scanned the area 1,000 feet around the four sects. She seemed to have found something. 1,000 feet away, there was a large area of rocks. There were no trees, and the huge rocks reflected the moonlight slightly. Wherever the cold wind blew, the grass between the rocks swayed. There was nothing else. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense swept through the area and found that it was normal. However, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat, and he felt that there was something wrong. Hero 1 cough, Vice Sect Leader 1, about 1,000 feet north of here. Is there a large area of rocks? Zhang Xiaohua asked in a low voice. About that. Reporting? Elder, I came here at night from Index Finger Peak. I didn't check the surroundings. Wenhai said apologetically. Is there anything strange there? Zhang Xiaohu asked. No. Zhang Xiaohua was about to answer when her expression suddenly changed. She hurriedly said, I have something to do. I'll come back later. As she said that, she put her hand in Zhang Xiaohu's hand and turned around to cast a flying spell. she left on her own. Zhang Xiaohu stared blankly for a moment. Pinching the soft object in his hand, he immediately knew that it was the extremely precious sheepskin scroll. He casually stuffed it into his bosom without a trace. Then he heard the elder behind him ask in a displeased tone, "Sect leader Zhang, where did fellow Taoist Pan go? Now is the time to cover his tracks. Why did he leave?" This. Zhang Xiaohu was stunned. He couldn't say that it was midnight and his brother needed to sleep, right? He could only say, "I'll let you know, Grandmaster." Panin, Taoist priest, discovered that something was amiss 1,000 feet away. He personally went to take a look. What? 1,000 zhang away? Master Longevity sucked in a breath of cold air, while Nanjing cried out in alarm. What? Am I wrong? Zhang Xiaohu was shocked. He turned his head and asked from one high, "What did you say just now?" "Sect leader, Taoist Pan, and just asked me if I passed by 1,000 feet away from here." He felt that there was something wrong there. Master Tiangang, Master Yuan Dao, Master Yuan Ming, and Nun Shuqing all had ugly expressions. Standing here, one's divine sense could see 1,000 feet away. That was a waste of time. Moreover, he knew the flying spell. This Taoist priest Pan, and which generation's senior master was he? Nun Jingyi's face turned green when she thought of 1,000 feet away. She could understand when the Misty School had such a senior who had such a deep relationship with them. Master Longevity looked into the distance at Zhang Xiaohua, who had long disappeared, and said in a low voice, "With this senior's help, this trip to the secret plane will be safe." Then everyone sat down in their respective places. However, after waiting for a long time, the full moon had already set in the west. Zhang Xiaohua still hadn't returned. Nanjing wanted to get up several times, but when she saw that Master Longevity didn't move, she restrained herself. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore. Just as she was about to get up, Master Longevity also stood up. The two of them looked at each other and walked to Zhang Xiao. They cupped their hands and said, "Sect leader Zhang, we know that your sect's Taoist priest Pan and cultivation is profound, and there won't be any problems with him going to investigate. However, he's been gone for a long time. I'm afraid there might be some mishap. If we go to help, what do you think?" Zhang Xiaohu smiled bitterly in his heart. What could he say? He could only nod and say, "I'm also surprised. Did something happen to Taoist priest Pan? It's only 1,000 feet away. If something happened, there would have been a commotion. I don't think it's anything urgent. Maybe Taoist priest Pan saw the beautiful moonlight tonight and hid in a corner to admire it. That's also possible." At this point, he saw the strange expressions on the two's faces and immediately said, "Although I'm also worried, my cultivation is shallow and I don't dare to go. What if I trouble the elders of the Dalan Temple and the incense cult? I'm also worried that something might go wrong." Without waiting for Zhang Xiaohu to finish speaking, Master Longevity waved his hand. Great Master Changgung and Master Changxing floated up in the air and went straight to the south, 1,000 feet away. Since the two great masters are gone, I'm relieved. Zhang Xiaohu stopped nagging. 1,000 feet away was actually not far. Just as Zhang Xiaohu stopped talking and turned to look to the south, everyone frowned slightly. They wanted to know what Taoist priest Pan and had discovered. Suddenly, two extremely bright lights came from 1,000 feet away. Then, there was a faint cry of surprise, followed by a rumbling sound. Hearing this familiar rumbling sound, Master Longevity's expression changed immediately. Shindao's sect. That's right, it's between the clouds and the water. Master Jing also gritted her teeth. This by Yinxiu is really everywhere. Changgung, Changxing. Master Tiangong's expression also changed. Master Yuan Dao waved his hand and pulled out the demon, subduing pestle from his back. Master Yuan Ming also threw his hand, and the Mao bead also turned into the size of a plate and flew into the air. However, before the two of them could fly 100 feet away, they heard a voice in the distance. "Don't worry, great masters. We'll come." Wasn't that the voice of Bai Yinxiu between the clouds and the water? The two great masters, Yuan Dao and Yuan Ming, paused in the air for a moment before flying back to stand beside Master Tiangang. They didn't put away the demon's subduing pestle in their hands, and the Mao bead in the air. Master Longevity and Master Jing he looked coldly at by Yin Xiu, who was flying over from afar, and Chang Gung and Chang Xing, who were captured by Hao Feng and Daoist Hao Yu. They didn't say a word. When Bai Yinxiu flew closer, he cupped his hands and smiled. So the incense cult, Daolan Temple, and Misty School, other than my four immortal Dao sects between the clouds and the water, are all saber-rising. Why is the Righteous Alliance also here? Today's moonlight is beautiful. But how did this barren mountain attract the most famous four immortal Dao sects in Jianghu? Bai Yinxiu, my Daolan Temple's Chang Gung, and Master Chang Xing. How are they? Master Chang Xing couldn't help but ask when he saw the two great masters being captured and their divine sense blocked by Hao Yun. It's nothing. They just suffered some minor injuries. Bai Yinxiu chuckled. Our disciples between the clouds and the water were admiring the moon. But these two great masters came to disturb us and disturbed our mood. Daoist Hao Yun just punished them slightly. The mountain river map. Master Jing, he clenched her teeth. That day on Mount Yao, Bai Zhangmin used the mountain river map to hide the figures of the disciples between the clouds and the water. He wanted to seize the initiative when the immortal mansion of Mount Yao appeared. Who knew that the immortal mansion wasn't on Mount Yao, but in the void above Mount Yao? Bai Zhangmin's mountain river map exposed his whereabouts. Why didn't I think of that? This mountain river map is the best at hiding one's aura. With the surrounding terrain, even the divine sense of the immortal path can't detect it. Master Jing is really brilliant, but I also didn't expect that these two monks would suddenly appear when we were hiding well. Where's Master Panin? Zhang Xiaohu asked in a timely manner. Master Panin? Bai Yinxiu was stunned. He shook his head and said, Master Pan, and flew away from us? Zhang Xiaohu frowned and turned to look at Master Chang Sheng, expressing his innocence. At this time, Master Chang Sheng didn't want to investigate further. He only sneered and said, Between the clouds and the water captured two great masters of my Daolan Temple. Do you want to declare war on my Daolan Temple? I wouldn't dare, Bai Yinxiu replied with a smile in his eyes. I'm not talented. I know that my words carry little weight, so I have no choice but to ask the two great masters to be my bargaining chip. As long as Master Chang Sheng agrees to my conditions, I'll immediately release the two great masters. Master Chang Sheng sneered. My Daolan Temple can be easily coerced. Bai Yinxiu, what do you want? Please say it quickly. If it's feasible, we can agree to it. You should leave as soon as you get the benefits. Otherwise, our four sects will join forces and destroy your descendants between the clouds and the water. Abbess Jing, why are you so angry? What else could I have come here for? I just want to enter the secret land with you and get some benefits. What secret land? Bai Zhangmin, what is he talking about? Why can't I understand? Master Jing laughed. Is that so? Master Jing, you're not being honest. You're bullying my descendants between the clouds and the water. Have they ever been destroyed? Bai Yinxiu laughed and waved his hand. Pinger, come here. Ping. Everyone was stunned. From afar, a figure slowly walked over using Qigong. Looking at the figure, his Qigong was very poor. Presumably, his martial arts weren't high either. However, when that person walked into the arena, the Righteous Alliance's alliance leader Zhang San shouted, Situ Ping? You're actually a disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water? Then Misty Schools when one high was also shocked. Leader Situ? Then he shook his head and said, I really didn't expect it. Everyone, who do you think this person is? It's the leader of the evil tiger gang, Situ Ping, who was led by Wan Jianfeng's disciple, Ma Xiangyang, when Wan Hai and Yinming Jusher entered the forest for the first time. How could it be you? Situ Ping, you actually dared to deceive this old man? Alliance Master Zhang San repeated this sentence. When he joined forces with the incense cult and the Daolan Temple to force O Peng to death, he had already lost sight of Situ Ping. At that time, he had sent many people to look for him, but there was no news. Later, when the Righteous Alliance took over the Misty School, there was no need for Situ Ping to exist anymore. Thus, he threw this person to the back of his mind. What he didn't expect was that Situ Ping would appear when he least expected it. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. Chapter 12-13. Situ Ping, you're the leader of the evil tiger gang, but you're also a disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water. You told us about Wan Jianfeng, the sheepskin scroll, and the forest. Was it by Yinchio's order? When we confronted the Dalan Temple and the incense cult, we couldn't find you. Were you taken away by Between the Clouds and the Water? Alliance leader Zhang is indeed a smart person. It's exactly as he said. However, the Evil Tiger Gang and the Evil Tiger Mountain Villa have been used by the Alliance of Righteous Sects for a long time. I miss them very much. I've always wanted to go back and see if they're still the same as before. By Zhang Men, you're too calculative. Alliance leader Zhang San sighed. Hee. Alliance leader Zhang San is too kind. Ping only found out about it by chance. That's why he hurriedly reported it to me. If I had known about it earlier, you wouldn't have been here. Actually, Bai Zhangmin didn't have to use so many tricks. He could have just destroyed the 4 sects and obtained the 4 sheepskin scrolls. Alliance leader Zhang San said, puzzled. That's what I thought, but Alliance leader O of the Misty School and Yang Rupiying are both descendants of the Immortal Path sects. If I acted rashly, Between the Clouds and the Water would have been exposed. If your 3 sects caught wind of this, with the strength of your 3 sects Between the Clouds and the Water, would I still be safe and sound? She then said hatefully, to be honest, I've also done a lot of tricks in the other 3 sections. Unfortunately, my luck wasn't good. None of the sheepskin scrolls fell into the hands of Between the Clouds and the Water. So today, I had no choice but to do this. Alliance leader Zhang San gritted his teeth. He had been plotting since he got the information about the sheepskin scrolls from Situ Ping, as well as the secret of the Immortal Path. The destruction of the Misty School was also part of Bai Yinchio's plan. Now that the incense cult, the Dalan Temple, and the Misty School were greatly weakened, the alliance of righteous sects was even more miserable. This was all thanks to Bai Yinchio of Between the Clouds and the Water. How could he not bear a grudge? Bai Yinchio of Between the Clouds and the Water was the instigator of the decline of the alliance of righteous sects. Needless to say, Bai Yinchio had been labeled as such by Alliance leader Zhang San. Then, Alliance leader Zhang San said coldly, What? Bai Zhangman, what do you mean? You've been plotting for so long, involving the famous 4 sects in Jianghu, and now you've captured the 2 masters of the Dalan Temple. Are you planning to take the treasure for yourself? Haha. Alliance leader Zhang San, you're exaggerating. How can I, Between the Clouds and the Water, have such a big appetite? Between the Clouds and the Water is not the Beidou School, and this secret plane is not the Yaoshan Immortal Mansion. How can I, the leader of this sect, take all the treasure for myself? Then, Bai Yinchio looked at Master Changsheng and Nun Jingyi and said with a smile, Between the Clouds and the Water is also a big sect with immortal inheritance, so we're also qualified to enter this secret plane. I don't have many requests. I just want to enter the secret plane with the Alliance of Righteous Sects and the Misty School and have the same treatment as them. Nun Jing, he was a little hesitant. She looked at Master Changsheng and said in a low voice, The 2 masters Changgung and Changxing are in the hands of Between the Clouds and the Water. Master, please make the decision on this matter. Master Changsheng pondered for a moment and told her about the agreement between the sects and said, If Between the Clouds and the Water joins, each sect should get 20%, Master Changsheng. You can't say that. Between the Clouds and the Water doesn't have a sheepskin scroll. How could she get 20%? I'm afraid 5% is already a lot. Alliance Master Zhang San shouted. 5%? Bai Yinchio sneered. Alliance Master Zhang San has a good plan. Could it be that you're treating Between the Clouds and the Water like a beggar? Then how many places do you want? Alliance Master Zhang San also sneered. 20%. Bai Yinqiu glanced at Chongqing and Changgung and said decisively, between the clouds and the water wanted 20%, so the other four sects naturally also wanted 20%. The Alliance of Righteous Sects wanted to give the Misty School 15%, so the Alliance of Righteous Sects only had 5% left. How could Alliance Master Zhang San agree? 20%? Huh? Alliance Master Zhang Sen laughed so hard that his waist almost bent. He pointed at Bai Yinqiu, shook his head, and said, "You're really imaginative." Seeing Alliance Master Zhang San laugh, Master Changsheng frowned, thought for a moment, and said, "Alliance Master Zhang San, how about this? My Dalan Temple will give up 5% to make up for your Alliance of Righteous Sects losses. What do you think?" "Oh, so that's how it is." Alliance Master Zhang San was stunned, then nodded slightly, and said with a smile, "If Master Zhang San says so, our Alliance of Righteous Sects will naturally agree." Hearing this, Master Chang Sheng breathed a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to ask Bai Yinqiu to let them go, he heard Alliance Master Zhang San say, "But our Alliance of Righteous Sects fell at the hands of between the clouds and the water. If they get the benefits, how will our Alliance of Righteous Sects have a place to stand in the future? So, please understand, Master Changsheng, today, I can't agree to let between the clouds and the water enter the secret ground." "Zhang San," Master Chang Sheng scolded, "don't you dare challenge this old monk's bottom line." Bai Yinqiu was also shocked. He looked at the few martial arts disciples of the Alliance of Righteous Sects with interest and said slowly, "Alliance Master Zhang San, aren't you afraid of being killed by the elders of Between the Clouds and the Water with just these few martial arts disciples?" Of course, Between the Clouds and the Water has the ability to do so. Our Alliance of Righteous Sects also has no power to fight back, but can the Dalan Temple agree? Can the Incense Sect agree? Can the Misty School agree? Then he bowed to Master Changsheng and said, "Master, I'm afraid that I've made things difficult for you. However, without my parchment, I'm afraid that this secret ground is just a flower in the mirror, the moon in the water." Then, as if he thought of something, he slapped his forehead and said, "Oh, look at my memory. What did I hide the parchment? I really forgot about it. But it's true. Other than myself, no one else knows where it is hidden. If I really forgot this secret ground, I'll never be able to enter it again. Oh, I remember again. Master Chang Sheng, when we leave the secret ground tomorrow morning, won't the Dalan Temple, the Incense Sect, and the Misty School escort me to a safe place?" The elders' faces were ashen. Nun Jing, he was deep in thought, and Zhang Xiaohu looked on coldly. Bai Yinqiu was in a difficult position. There was only the sound of the wind blowing. The moon was also covered by the thick dark clouds that were blown by the wind, and no light could be seen. The wind gradually became colder. Little by little, the small snowflakes that were like grains of salt slowly fell down. After an unknown period of time, Master Changsheng sighed, stepped forward and said, "How about this, Bai Zhangmin? You also know that without the parchment of the Righteous Alliance, none of us can enter the secret ground. If Alliance Master Changsheng doesn't want your sect to enter, can your sect wait outside? My Dalan Temple can give 20% to your sect, leaving only 5%. Bai Yinqiu narrowed her eyes, as if the snowflakes had hit her eyelashes. She thought for a moment, looked up the sky, and said, "This damn weather, why is it suddenly snowing?" Master Chang Sheng didn't answer, but Bai Yinqiu murmured again, "It should be early in the morning now. In another 2 hours, the sky will be bright. If we can't find a place to enter the forest when the sky is bright, I'm afraid that even with the parchment, we won't be able to enter the forest." Master Chang Sheng's face changed again, and he said coldly, "Bai Zhangmin, what do you mean?" Bai Yinqiu stroked her hair and said with a smile, "What can I mean? I'm just reminding Master that tonight is a cloudy day and there's heavy snow. The sunlight may not appear, and we may not be able to find a place to enter the forest." "Bai Zhangmin, you're mistaken. This is us, the 4 sections. It doesn't include Between the Clouds and the Water. Alliance Master Chang Sheng said fearlessly. Then, Bai Zhongmin, do you think 20% is too little? Master Chang Sheng suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, Yes, it's a little too little. We between the clouds and the water are also from a large immortal sect, and we also rushed into the forbidden ground and the formation. Master won't let us enter the secret ground. So what does this so-called 20% mean to us between the clouds and the water? Bai Yinqiu said frankly. Bai Zhongmin, please speak frankly. Master Chang Sheng lost his patience. All right, since Master wants me to speak frankly, then I won't be polite. Bai Yinqiu said as she stretched out her hand and made a 5 sign. 50%? Master Chang Sheng shook his head. The Dalan Temple only has 25%. This 50%, I definitely can't agree. Haha, Master, you're mistaken. Bai Yinqiu said with a smile, like a flower. The 50% I'm talking about is 50% of all the treasures that the Dalan Temple obtained in the secret ground. Roar! Master Chang Sheng roared like a lion, raising its head. Bai Zhongmin, you've gone too far. A gust of wind blew from Master Chang Sheng, blowing straight toward Bai Yinqiu. The sound also shook Bai Yinqiu's head slightly. Just as Bai Yinqiu moved slightly, Master Chang Sheng moved. He stretched out his hand, and his 5 fingers directly grabbed toward Bai Yinqiu's face. Be careful, Master, Taoist Hao Feng, who was beside Bai Yinqiu, reminded. As soon as Master Chang Sheng roared, Bai Yinqiu felt that something was wrong. Without waiting for him to open his eyes, his body floated up and flew backward. Seeing this, Master Chang Sheng's body did not change. He urged the vital energy in his meridians and also floated up. Then, a suction force appeared between his 5 fingers out of thin air, covering Bai Yinqiu's face. Bai Yinqiu was even more shocked when he saw this. He blurted out, Dragon controlling hand? Actually, how could this be an ordinary dragon controlling hand? When the suction force covered Bai Yinqiu's face, an indescribable throbbing appeared in Bai Yinqiu's heart. It was as if the palm was gradually expanding, so big that it grabbed Bai Yinqiu's entire gaze. This is bad, seeing Master Chang Sheng use such a method. How could Bai Yinqiu not know how powerful it was? As his body retreated rapidly, he was about to take out a Dharma artifact from his back. However, Master Chang Sheng's palm was right in front of Bai Yinqiu's face. Bai Yinqiu did not even have time to retreat. How could he have a time to take out a Dharma artifact? Chapter 12:14. Zhang Xiaohu was shocked by the sudden change. Before he could see the fight between Master Chang Sheng and Bai Yinqiu clearly, he heard a 7-colored brilliance flash beside Bai Yinqiu, followed by a miserable scream. When Zhang Xiaohu focused his gaze, he saw a 7-colored ring flashing past Master Chang Sheng's chest. It was Master Tiangang's wheel of expansion. When Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming took out their respective magic tools, Master Tiangang also took out his wheel of mortal evolution. However, he hid his traces and stayed close to the ground, so that Master Taoist Hao Feng of the Water Cloud sect would not notice him. Now that he saw Master Chang Sheng take action, how could Master Tiangang not know that this matter could not be settled peacefully? With a hand seal, the mortal will flew up. Taoist Hao Feng had just warned Bai Yinqiu and did not expect that the mortal wheel would fly into his back from the ground. How powerful was the mortal wheel? As soon as it came into contact with Taoist Hao Feng, it immediately drilled into his flesh. Not to mention that Taoist Hao Feng did not have a protective light shield. Even if he had one, it would have been damaged if he was caught off guard. As a result, the wheel of mortal expansion spun and flew out from Taoist Hao Feng's chest. Taoist Hao Feng loosened his grip, and Grandmaster Chang Sheng fell to the ground. Grandmaster Yuan Ming pointed his finger, and the Maomu pearl shot towards Taoist Hao Yu, who was still holding Grandmaster Chang Gong. Junior brother, Hao Yu was right beside Master Chang Gong. Seeing that Master Chang Gong was killed by the Wheel of Expansion before he could save him in time, his eyes were already wide open. He shouted with a ruthless look in his eyes. Seeing the Mao pearl flying towards him, his hand moved slightly and a defensive jade talisman was shot out. His other hand reached out slightly and grabbed Great Master Chonggung's throat. Then he exerted force. Great Master Chonggung's head tilted, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that he was dead. Grandmaster Yuan Ming originally wanted to save Grandmaster Chonggung, but he didn't expect Daoist Hao Yu to be so ruthless. He didn't care about his own life and wanted to kill Chonggung. He couldn't help but grit his teeth and fiercely activated the true qi in his meridians. Grandmaster Yuan Ming's injuries hadn't healed yet, and now that he activated his true qi, his meridians were injured again. The Molu Pearl suddenly expanded, and with a bang sound, it hit Daoist Hao Yu's back with extreme speed. Master Hao Yu's defensive light barrier had not been completely released. After being hit by the Mao Pearl, it immediately shattered into pieces and dissipated in the air. Master Hao Yu also spat out a large mouthful of blood. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. However, Master Hao Yu stubbornly held on. He waved the lightning hammer in his hand, and a bolt of lightning appeared out of thin air, flashing towards the Mao Pearl. Just as Master Yuan Ming was about to use the Mao Pearl to save Great Master Chonggung, Master Yuan Dao also waved his demon vanquishing pestle and directly flew to Master Chongxing's side. At this moment, Nun Shuqing was shocked. She also waved the plain cloud white flag in her hand, and countless small white lotuses appeared around Master Chongxing, protecting him tightly. Then, when he saw Daoist Bright Moon snapping Daoist Chonggung's throat, Daoist Yuan Dao roared, "Go!" The demon fall pestle immediately turned into a stream of light and slammed towards Daoist Bright Moon. "How dare you!" Master Hao Yun shouted from the side. His tone was also filled with grief. He threw a small black shadow in his hand upwards. Don't! A huge tremor came from that black shadow, causing everyone's ears to buzz. Heaven's shaking drum? Seeing this, Master Tiangang laughed instead of getting angry. This heaven-shaking drum has already been damaged. What's there to show off? It's a pity that you don't have the heaven-shaking hammer. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to beat this heaven-shaking drum. We would have to avoid it. Master Tiangang laughed loudly. The mortal wheel whistled as it flew towards Master Hao Yun. Is that so? Master Hao Yun laughed nastily. He reached into his bosom and took out a short object that was only 3 inches long. Heaven-shaking hammer? Master Tiangang was slightly stunned. It was obvious that he had never seen a heaven-shaking hammer before. At this moment, the mortal wheel also approached Master Hao Yun's body. Back to Master Chongsheng and Bai Yinqiu. Master Chongsheng clawed at Bai Yinqiu's face. A powerful gravitational force was born from Master Chongsheng's palm. Bai Yinqiu was greatly shocked and quickly retreated. However, Master Chongsheng's levitation technique was only slightly better than Bai Yinqiu's. The 5 fingers were getting closer and closer to Bai Yinqiu's face. When he retreated, Bai Yinqiu's hair that was coiled into a bun on top of his head also scattered. Beautiful hair like clouds was originally a kind of beauty. However, at this moment, it became Bai Yinqiu's shortcoming. That strand of black hair fell into Master Chongsheng's hand. A ruthless look appeared in Master Chongsheng's eyes. He wrapped his fingers around the black hair and gently pulled it back. Ouch! A scream came out of Bai Yinqiu's mouth. However, no matter how painful it was, Bai Yinqiu did not dare to stop. Bai Yinqiu stretched out his left hand and was about to use his true energy to cut off the hair. At this moment, she only felt the strength in Master Chongsheng's hand suddenly increase. She did not dare to hesitate anymore and fiercely shook her head. Suddenly, a large strand of hair was pulled out from Bai Yinqiu's scalp by Master Chongsheng. With a whoosh, Bai Yinqiu sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, with a bang, Bai Yinqiu felt that he seemed to have bumped into someone from behind. Bai Yinqiu did not think too much and grabbed that person with his backhand. Lord Sect Leader, that person exclaimed. It was Situ Ping, who had hidden here because he saw conflict. Bai Yinqiu did not care who she was. He used his strength and shook it forward, blocking Situ Ping's head in front of Master Chongsheng's hand. Then, With the force of Situ Ping's forward push, Bai Yanqiu's figure flipped and floated far away, while Master Changsheng was blocked in front of Situ Ping. Umipa. Excellent. Master Sheng chanted the name of Buddha. He was merciless. Before Situ Ping could breathe, he pointed his finger. Situ Ping's head was easily torn apart like a watermelon. Situ Ping's corpse fell to the ground. Ha ha ha! Bai Yanqiu, who had escaped far away, laughed loudly and said, "A monk is merciful. Master Changsheng, you have broken your vow to kill. Subduing demons and eliminating devils is the mercy of Buddha. This old monk has never abstained from killing. Bai Yanqiu, hand over your life." Master Changsheng was really angry. Seeing that Bai Yanqiu was far away, he took off the prayer beads hanging in front of his chest and threw them into the air. The prayer beads also expanded with the wind, covering Bai Yanqiu like a fishing net. Hee, Bai Yanqiu laughed coldly. He took out a bow from somewhere. It was the heaven-shaking bow that she used in the Huayu Palace of the Spreading Incense cult. Seeing Bai Yanqiu draw the bow, he did not knock an arrow. He released his fingers, and with a bang, a ray of red brilliance appeared from the bowstring. It went straight toward Alliance Master Zhang San, who was dumbfounded. "You?" Master Changsheng was slightly angry. Just as he was about to use the prayer beads to block Alliance Master Zhang San, he saw a black shadow as fast as lightning flash in front of Alliance Master Zhang San. It hit the red brilliance. With a bang, the brilliance scattered. What appeared before everyone's eyes was a long whip that looked like a python. One end of the long whip was in Abbess Jingyi's hand. "Good, Abbess Jingyi, look after Zhang San." Master Changsheng was overjoyed. He activated his true qi and cast the spell in his hand. The prayer beads whistled and covered Bai Yanqiu's head. After Abbess Jingyi defeated Bai Yanqiu's attack, she stood in front of Alliance Master Zhang San. With the peach blossom whip in her hand, she looked around and shouted, "Junior Sister Xuezhen, bring the disciples of the Spreading Incense cult over and protect the disciples of the Righteous Alliance." Then, she shouted to Zhang Xiao, Sect Master Zhang San, "The situation is critical. I'm sure you can see that Sect Master Zhang San is a person who has stepped into the path of immortality. The people of the Righteous Alliance are protecting Sect Master Zhang San. If anything happens to Sect Master Zhang San, none of us will be able to enter the secret ground." Zhang Xiaohu looked around and then looked at the battle not far away that he could not participate in. He nodded slightly. Thus, the disciples of the Spreading Incense cult quickly walked to the left side of the Righteous Alliance disciples with swords in hand. The people of the Misty School also walked over to the right side of the Righteous Alliance disciples. However, they were still some distance away from the Righteous Alliance disciples. One could see the dissatisfaction in their hearts. 3 zhang to the left of Master Changsheng, Master Yuandao's demon, subduing pestle flew towards Taoist Hao Yu. The lightning hammer in Hao Yu's hand had just sent Master Yuanming's Molu Pearl flying. It was already too late for him to activate his true qi. He had no choice but to turn around and use the lightning hammer to strike the demon subduing pestle. A huge force came from the demon's subduing pestle, causing Taoist Hao Yu's arm to go numb and his body to retreat a few steps. Not good. Without waiting for Taoist Hao Yu to stabilize his body, the Molu Pearl in his divine sense came crashing down towards Taoist Hao Yu's head. Taoist Hao Yu did not dare to be negligent. Lowering his hands, his body squatted on the ground, and exerting force with both hands, his entire body shot out like an arrow in the dark night, sticking close to the ground and flying towards the right. But at this moment, Taoist Hao Yu's face suddenly changed. He tried his best to stop his body and head towards another direction. But just now, he had used all his strength. How could he move away just because he wanted to? With a pu sound, the demon's subduing pestle transformed into a flying sword and appeared in the darkness. It was the demon's subduing pestle that Taoist Hao Yu had blocked earlier. Master Yuandao pointed at it and buried it in the direction where Taoist Hao Yu's body was retreating. Taoist Hao Yu was caught off guard and was struck by the demon subduing pestle. That demon subduing pestle had pierced right into Daoist Haoyu's head, smashing it into pieces. Although Daoist Haoyu was already dead, his rapidly moving body did not stop. Sticking close to the ground, he slid for a long distance. At this moment, the sky was already bright. The salt-like snowflakes were gradually getting bigger. A thin layer of grayish-white snow covered the ground. Daoist Haoyu's body cleared away the layer of snow on the ground, revealing the withered grass under the snow. His bloodstains had dyed the withered grass red. At this moment, a dong sound of drums sounded. It was like a shock to everyone's heart, causing everyone's heart to jump for no reason. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect it. Please tip it. If you like this work, you are welcome to Kamichidian. To cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote. Chapter 12:15. This, Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming joined hands to kill Daoist Haoyu and were about to deal with Bai Yinxiu when they heard this drum. They unconsciously looked at each other, their eyes filled with horror. Dong! Another sound followed. Everyone's heart was still beating along with the sound of the drum, and many people's faces were flushed red. Just as the drum sounded, Master Tiangong's mortal wheel also arrived in front of Daoist Haoyun. However, the vibration of the drum seemed to have set up a layer of invisible defense around Daoist Haoyun. When a mortal wheel came into contact with the invisible restriction, it couldn't fly any further. It tried several times, but it couldn't fly even an inch closer. Thump, 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 thump. One sound, two sounds, one sound after another. The drum beats became more and more concentrated, and the faces of the people present became bright red. First, they started to jump along with the drum beats. It was as if everything in the field was controlled by the drum beats. Quick, break his defense, or else we'll all die from heartbeat. Master Tiangang shouted. Woo woo. Two consecutive sounds rang out. The mola bead and the demon subduing pestle flew over, each striking the restriction formed around Daoist Master Haoyun. No light could be seen, but no matter how hard they tried, they were unable to break through. Pa! With a clear shout, Nanjing Yi's whip flew over again and lashed around Daoist Haoyun. Nun Shuqing, who had just rescued Master Chongqing, moved the plain cloud-white flag in her hand, and countless small lotus flowers appeared around Daoist Haoyun. Each flower emitted a bright light and disappeared in a flash. Daoist Haoyun, who was holding the heaven-shaking drum and heaven-smashing hammer, had a green light flickering on his face. His forehead was already covered in sweat, but when he activated the heaven-shaking drum, he saw the death of his two junior brothers, and his eyes were filled with anger. Now that he saw the various magic tools attacking him, he knew that today would be the end of a life and death struggle. After the green light faded from Daoist Master Haoyun's face, the beating of the drums became even more intense. Dong 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 dong. Among the people present, those with profound cultivations leapt into the air and clenched their teeth, desperately striking the magic tools in their hands towards Daoist Master Haoyun. Those with shallow cultivations used their hands to cover their ears and circulated all the power in their bodies to resist the beating of the drums. However, the sound of the heaven-shaking drum did not seem to be heard by the ears, but directly struck their hearts. In the Righteous Alliance, several martial arts experts were lying on the ground, their bodies rolling nonstop. Their hands were covering their ears, and their teeth were grinding. It was as if all the blood in their bodies had gathered on their faces. Their faces were red, as if they were about to bleed. Boom! A loud sound rang out. Ah! The Righteous Dao Alliance members could no longer hold on. After this loud sound, blood slowly flowed out from their 7 orifices. The hands that were covering their ears also slowly loosened. Their eyes that were filled with fear opened wide as they stared blankly at the falling snowflakes in the sky. Gradually, they lost consciousness. Looking at the Righteous Alliance's Alliance Master Zhang San, he could no longer hold back. When the Righteous Alliance members fell to the ground, he immediately sat down cross-legged and silently circulated his heart technique, circulating the inner strength in his body to resist the beating of the drums. But the heaven-shaking drum was a famous weapon of the immortal path. Even Master Tian Gang would be wary of it. How could martial arts' inner strength resist it? Seeing his heartbeat quicken and his face bleeding, Alliance Master Zhang Sen panicked. He immediately reached into his clothes and took out a scarlet-red triangular flag. The strange red color of the flag was extremely obvious in this snowy night. Holding the flag in his left hand, Alliance Master Zhang Sen took out a green stone with his right hand. He bit his tongue, and with a pu sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood onto the flag. After absorbing the blood, the flag suddenly emitted a blood-red light, following which a faint red and black smoke was formed. The moment the smoke appeared, Alliance Master Zhang San threw the flag into the air and held the stone in his left hand. His right hand moved slightly, and his mouth muttered. The smoke followed Alliance Master Zhang San's fingers and slowly expanded, gradually enveloping Alliance Master Zhang San within it. On the left side of the Righteous Alliance, the disciples of the Fragrant Sect, Peacock, Chun Chun, and Yin, were all red in the face. They gritted their teeth, and their bodies trembled slightly. However, they still sat cross-legged. The weak qi in their bodies circulated rapidly, barely resisting the terrifying beating of the drums. Nun Xuezhen, who was sitting next to the three of them, was just as relaxed. She was also sitting cross-legged, but she first covered her ears with her hands, and then she took them down again. Just as she was about to adjust her breathing, she couldn't help but stretch out her hands and cover her ears again. After a few times, blood gradually seeped out of her mouth and nose on the right side of the Righteous Alliance. The disciples of the Misty School had already felt that something was wrong when Taoist Master Hao Yun took out the heaven-shaking drum and the heaven-smashing hammer. They immediately sat cross-legged. Zhang Xiaohu sat at the front, circulating the Kuan Peng transformation mantra in his meridians. The mantra of the Kuan Peng transformation mantra was the most important thing about fighting in the air, flapping one's wings, and trying to compete with the heavens. As for this shocking drum sound, it was like a hurricane in a dark rain. Wave after wave, Zhang Xiaohu still had a sliver of leeway to resist it. As for Li Jian and the others, although their internal energy was high, they were unable to resist the beating of the heaven-shaking drum. After a few beats, they were already bleeding from their ears and noses, rolling on the ground. They were not much stronger than the disciples of the Righteous Alliance. With a loud dong, just as the hearts of the Righteous Alliance disciples were shattered, Li Jian, Lu Qingyang, Wen Hai, and Lu Yueming's bodies also shook violently. Large mouthfuls of blood flowed out from their noses and mouths. Their eyes and ears were also bloodshot. Zhang Xiaohu also jumped along with the beating of the drum. His hands involuntarily went to cover his ears, but just as his hands passed by his chest, he suddenly remembered the rabbit jade talisman that Zhang Xiaohua had given them at Yao Mountain. At this time, he couldn't care about anything else and shouted, "Elderly, quickly, Xiaohua gave me the jade talisman." As he spoke, he took the jade talisman from his chest. Without even looking at it clearly, he immediately exerted force in his hand. With a paw sound, the jade talisman that didn't look like a rabbit was crushed. A faint golden light flashed, and a thin layer of light appeared around Zhang Xiao. With the formation of the light shield, the deafening beating of the drum gradually decreased. In the end, although the sound of the drum was deafening, it could only be heard in the ears and could no longer directly penetrate into Zhang Xiaohu's heart. Sigh. Zhang Xiaohu let out a sigh of relief. When he hurriedly looked back, he couldn't help but be shocked. At this time, Li Jian had already crushed the jade talisman and was in the process of forming a light shield. However, Lu Qingyang and the other two were already vomiting blood. Although they had already taken out the jade talisman, they didn't have the strength to crush it. Zhang Xiaohu didn't dare to neglect and hurriedly helped them crush the jade talisman one by one. Only when he saw the three faint golden light shields rise did he breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, Li Jian also stood up and hurriedly went over to check the pulse of the three people. Only then did he feel relieved. Looking at Zhang Xiaohu and the three people lying on the ground, his eyes were full of complex emotions. Dong, 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 dong. A series of rapid drumbeats. At this time, in the ears of Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jian, it was no different from the usual drumbeats. On the side of the fragrance cult, Senior Nun Shuizhen screamed and vomited a large mouthful of blood before falling to the ground. It was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Peacock and the other two also began to bleed from their 7 orifices. Righteous Tao Alliance. In the red and black mist, Alliance Master Zhang San's face was pale and his facial features were somewhat ferocious. His 7 orifices were also oozing blood. Pu-pu-pu. 3 inaudible sounds of blood spurting out were already covered by the sound of the heaven-shaking drum. However, the person who spurted out blood was not someone else, but Tao Master Hao Yun, who was beating the heaven-shaking drum. These 3 mouthfuls of blood were spat out on the heaven-shaking drum. The heaven-shaking drum absorbed the 3 mouthfuls of blood essence, and its brilliance became even brighter. It slightly expanded by half. As for Tao Master Hao Yun, who spurted out the blood essence, after a flash of green, his face suddenly became pale, and he seemed to have become thinner and weaker. Reverse blood corroding essence? Master Tian Gang shouted, "Quick, Yuan Dao, use the demon subduing pestle to attack. This brat is already strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. We need to hold on for a while longer. Even if we can't kill him, the backlash from the heaven-shaking drum will definitely kill him." Master Tian Gang's words were extremely true. The heaven-shaking drum and the heaven-breaking hammer were ancient divine weapons. They were not something that ordinary Qi practitioners could wield. This was also the reason why Tao Master Hao Yun did not take out the heaven-shaking drum earlier. Just the heaven-shaking drum alone. Tao Master Hao Yun would not be able to recover his Yuan Qi for several months after using it. Not to mention the heaven-breaking hammer. Tao Master Hao Yun was also injured. If not for the fact that Tao Master Hao Yu and Tao Master Hao Feng were both killed, he would definitely not have used the heaven-shaking drum at the same time. Seeing that Master Tian Gang and the other great enemies were not injured, and only a few ordinary disciples of the Righteous Alliance died, Tao Master Hao Yun could not help but feel anxious. He knew that he could not hold on for long. He immediately used a secret art similar to the reverse blood corroding essence, channeling all of his Yuan Qi into the heaven-shaking drum. When Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming heard Master Tian Gang's words, they forcefully suppressed the blood in their chest and also circulated their qi. With a wave of their hands, the demon's subduing pestle slammed down like a mountain. The Mao Pearl was like a full moon as it struck towards Tao Master Hao Yun's back. Master Tian Gang's wheel of evolution also spun rapidly, crashing toward Tao Master Hao Yun's chest. At the same time, Nun Shuqing unfurled the plain cloud-white flag, and many small lotus flowers also attacked Tao Master Hao Yun. Nun Jingyi's 7 orifices were bleeding slightly, and her limbs were weak. She held the peach blossom whip in her hand. Just like Master Chang Sheng, who was bleeding from his 7 orifices, she attacked by Yin Xiu. "All of you, go to hell!" Tao Master Hao Yun roared loudly. His face rapidly shrunk, and his entire body's qi essence was flowing away. With a wave of his right hand, he raised the heaven-breaking hammer in his hand and struck towards the heaven-shaking drum. Master Tian Gang's face was as red as blood. At this moment, it was slightly pale. He knew that this strike contained all of Tao Master Hao Yun's cultivation. Regardless of whether other people lived or died, this Tao Master Hao Yun would definitely die. However, if this strike hit the heaven-shaking drum and the sound of the drum spread out, how many people would survive would be hard to say. Chapter 12:16. Thinking of this, Master Tiangang looked at Taoist Master Hao Yun, who was struggling to hit the heaven-shaking drum with the heaven-breaking mallet, as if he was lifting a heavy object. He also shouted loudly and quickly formed a seal with his hands. From afar, it looked like a blooming lotus flower. Quick! Master Tiangang pointed his finger, and a mortal wheel that was about to reach Taoist Master Hao Yun's chest suddenly jumped up and disappeared. Then, it appeared below Taoist Master Hao Yun's heaven-breaking mallet. With a wong sound, it charged towards the heaven-breaking mallet. Bang! The two magic treasures collided with each other. The mortal wheel was sent flying horizontally far away, while the heaven-pounding hammer was also knocked up. Of course, it was only knocked up half a foot. Taoist Master Hao Yun's arm moved again, and the heaven-breaking mallet continued to strike. Just as the heaven-breaking mallet was about to hit the heaven-shaking drum, a bang sound was heard as the Molu Pearl hit Taoist Master Hao Yun's back. Taoist Master Hao Yun's body moved slightly, and with a series of crackling sounds, all the lotus flowers on the plain cloud white flag exploded. Finally, with a boom sound, the demon-subduing mallet that was as light as a feather fell on Taoist Master Hao Yun's head. At this time, the drum was silent, and the heaven-shaking drum's defense was gone. Taoist Master Hao Yun's body had been broken through by the Molu Pearl and the plain cloud white flag. Taoist Master Hao Yun's body was already dried up and weaker than an ordinary person. At this time, the heaven-breaking mallet was only a finger's distance away from the heaven-shaking drum. That was close, seeing the demons subduing mallet succeed. Everyone was overjoyed. They put away their magic tools and no longer spoke. They took out pills and sat down cross-legged to adjust their breathing. The heaven-shaking drum and the heaven-breaking mallet quietly floated in the air. No one went to collect them. The three disciples of the aroma religion were pale, but they seemed to have calmed down. Only Nun Xuezhen was lying on the ground, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. At the Misty School, Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jian had already rescued Wenwen Hai, Lu Yueming, and Lu Qingyang. At this moment, they were staring coldly at the Righteous Alliance's alliance leader Zhang San, who was shrouded in a cloud of reddish-black smoke. Their eyes were filled with indescribable shock. Not far away, Bai Yinxiu was not affected by the sky-shaking drum because he had taken precautions in advance. He fought alone against Master Longevity and Nanjing Yi, and originally had the upper hand. However, Taoist Master Hao Yun was smashed into meat paste, and the sound of the drum stopped. Bai Yinxiu immediately fell into a disadvantageous position. Seeing that he could not hold on, Bai Yinxiu waved his hand, and a signal flew into the air. He then sneered and said, "You immortal Tao experts are now seriously injured. This sect leader wants to see which martial Tao disciple cut off your heads. You?" At this moment, Master Longevity and Nanjing Yi finally realized that under Bai Yinxiu's mountain and river map, there must be many immortal Tao or martial Tao experts on the same level as Liang Cangshu and the others lying in ambush. Now that they were injured, killing dozens of them was not a problem. However, it was impossible to kill hundreds or thousands of them. Seeing the change in Master Longevity and Nanjing Yi's expressions, Bai Yinxiu was very proud. But after waiting for a while, no one came. 1,000 feet was not very far away, and at this time, the sky was already bright. It was almost dawn, and they could already see things 1,000 feet away. What's going on? Bai Yinxiu was very proud and did not find it strange. It was like extreme joy begets sorrow. However, before Bai Yinxiu could turn around to look at the mountain and river map 1,000 feet away, her eyes casually fell on the corpse of Reverend Hao Yu, who was flying close to the ground. At this time, Reverend Hao Yu's head was shattered. It should have been a mess of flesh and blood. The ground where Reverend Hao Yu's body brushed past should also have a trail of blood. However, what Bai Yinxiu saw was a dried-up lump where Reverend Hao Yu's head should have been. She could not see anything. There was not a single trace of blood on the withered grass and snow behind the corpse. Bai Yinxiu's heart trembled. Her body immediately floated in midair and looked around in horror, as if she had seen a ghost. Reverend Hao Yu's corpse was not far ahead. It should be Reverend Hao Feng. Reverend Hao Feng's chest was cut horizontally by the yin fan wheel. He should have been dripping with blood and looked very bloody. However, at this time, Reverend Hao Feng was lying there diagonally. Beside him, there was already a thick layer of snow, but it was still pure white. It was as if there was no blood at all. Tenryu sect. Bai Yinxiu hysterically screamed in midair. At this time, she was extremely convinced by Zhang Xiaohua's words. The Dalan Temple, Chuanxiang sect, Misty School, the Righteous Alliance, and between the clouds and the water were already here. If there was someone who had the strength to spare, if it was not the Tenryu sect, who else could it be? And the disciples between the clouds and the water that she brought with her did not heed her signal to come out. Was there even a need to say the result? Seeing Bai Yinxiu flying in midair in horror and hearing Bai Yinxiu's terrified scream. Although Master Changsheng and Nanjing, you did not notice the abnormality of the corpse on the snow. Their hearts jumped. Before they could ask, they heard a shrill laughter from the mountain map that was 1,000 feet away from Bai Yinxiu. Following that, Sakura, dressed in black and wearing a cloak on his head, appeared from 1,000 feet away with a few people dressed in strange clothes and dozens of ordinary-looking disciples of the Tenryu sect. In the middle of the dozens of disciples was a woman dressed in purple. This woman had big eyes, thick eyebrows, a beauty mark on her left chin, and a dimple on her right cheek. This was the dream that Zhang Xiaohua had been thinking about day and night. Sakura, it's really you. Seeing this, Bai Yinxiu couldn't help but laugh. Beidou School's sect leader Ren said that the trap under Yao Mountain was set up by your Tenryu sect. We didn't believe it and thought that you were already hiding in the Tenryu sect to recuperate. Now, it seems that we have all fallen into your trap. Sakura's figure floated in the air, and he said shrilly, "What? Master Tiangang, Master Yuan Dao, Master Yuan Ming, and Nunshu Qing are all seriously injured. If they don't retreat to recuperate, how can I go back?" Then, looking at the corpses on the ground from afar, he stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. He smiled and said, "If I leave, how can this place be lively? How can Yao Mountain be lively?" Seeing Sakura approaching, Bai Yinxiu didn't dare to stay any longer. After weighing the pros and cons, he turned around and flew to Master Changsheng and Nanjing Yi's side. Seeing that Master Changsheng and Nanjing Yi were still confused, Bai Yinxiu pointed to the Righteous Alliance's disciples on the left and reminded them, "Master, can you see if there is any blood under the bodies of the Righteous Alliance's disciples? See if they are the same as the corpses under Yao Mountain." Only then did Master Changsheng and Nanjing Yi understand. With just a glance, they knew that the corpses of those disciples were the same as the dried corpses without blood on Yao Mountain. "Oh, Alliance Master Zhang, you." Seeing the abnormal corpses of the Righteous Alliance's disciples, everyone also saw Alliance Master Zhang San's scarlet flag and the black and red fog around it. When Alliance Master Zhang San saw this, he knew that he couldn't hide the secret, so he smiled and said, "This is the immortal cultivation method that XING Town's family offered to our alliance. Our alliance's cultivation isn't deep enough, so we don't dare to embarrass ourselves in front of everyone." Immortal cultivation method? Master Changsheng frowned and looked at Nanjing Yi. Both of them looked at each other in surprise. "Ha ha ha!" Sakura, who was far away, seemed to have heard them and shouted, "Alliance Master Zhang San, welcome to our Tenryu sect. What immortal cultivation method is this?" "It is the supreme cultivation method of our Tenryu sect." "Nonsense!" Alliance Master Zhang San almost jumped up. "Your demonic sect's cultivation method. Does it need vitality stones?" "Who said that demonic sect's cultivation method doesn't need vitality stones?" Sakura laughed sharply and took a few steps forward. "Sakura, how did you know about this place?" Master Changsheng shouted angrily. "This is the inheritance of our immortal Dao ancestor." "Ha! Changsheng. Oh, Changsheng, don't forget that your Dalan Temple, although it's also a immortal Dao sect, it's different from Fragrance Cult, Misty School, and Shindao sect. Your inheritance is different from theirs." Sakura replied. What's more, my Tenryu sect's ancestor Sakura also stayed in this forest before. So why can't my Tenryu sect know about this place? Then he clapped his hands and said, since your Shindao sect has Situ Ping, why can't my Tenryu sect have Situ Liang? As he said this, a disciple walked out from the crowd. Situ Liang, you're actually a disciple of the Tenryu sect? Others didn't recognize Situ Liang, but how could Bai Yinxiu, the head of Between the Clouds and the Water, not recognize him? That's right, this disciple is indeed a disciple of the Tenryu sect. Bai Zhongmin, your Shindao sect's threshold is too high. This disciple can't pass it, so I can only become a disciple of the Tenryu sect. Situ Liang sneered. Bai Yinxiu's face turned green and red. Back then, by chance, Bai Yinxiu met Situ Ping and Situ Liang. She chose Situ Ping to be a disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water and sent him to the evil tiger gang to be one Jianfeng spy. She threw Situ Liang to the side, but she never would have thought that Situ Liang was already a disciple of the Tenryu sect. All right, Bai Zhongmin, it's not that I want to scold you, but you've been planning for so long, yet you're so overcautious. You didn't even dare to deal with Peng from the Misty School. If you did it earlier, how would you be in such a predicament today? I have to say, you're speaking to here. He paused for a bit, then continued. You're really too soft-hearted. I was far away in the northwest, but I still received the message sent by Situ Liang. If it wasn't for some unforeseen circumstances, I would have come here personally. Since you didn't participate in the excitement of the secret plane last time, this time, don't disappoint me, okay? Sakura revealed a mocking smile. How can your Tenryu sect meddle in my affairs? What unforeseen circumstances did you have? Don't decline. If your Tenryu sect had come earlier, I wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess Between the Clouds and the Water. Bai Yinxiu also sneered without any trace of politeness. Right now, she was all alone and had already disregarded her own life. So how could she still have any fear towards Sakura? If I have any matters, why would I need to inform you? Sakura said proudly, looking at Bai Yinxiu, who was Between the Clouds and the Water, as well as Tenryu sect Sakura, Master Changsheng, and Nanjing. You were both speechless. That's right, everyone was scheming, but none of them succeeded. Chapter 12:17. After a long while, Master Changsheng sighed. He looked at Nanjing Yi, Alliance Master Zhang San, and Zhang Xiao. Then, he looked at Master Tiangang, Master Yuan Dao, Master Yuan Ming, and Nun Shuqing, who had yet to recover from their injuries. He took a step forward, put his palms together, and chanted, Ba, Sakura, you've been plotting for a long time. You just want to find the sheepskin scroll and go deep into the forest to find the inheritance. Just as you said, my Dalan Temple is not a sect founded by the three ancestors of the immortal Tao. But since my Dalan Temple has the sheepskin scroll and has the right to enter the secret area, it's not impossible for your Tenryu sect to enter as well. Moreover, the three immortal Tao sects and my Dalan Temple may be different from your Tenryu sect, but we haven't had any fierce conflicts for tens of thousands of years. Today, although we're all injured, we may not necessarily lose to your Tenryu sect. This old monk is not talented, but I still want to make a deal with Sakura. When Sakura heard this, he was slightly stunned. With a strange smile on his face, he said, Master, please speak. Master Changsheng repeated the method of sharing the profits that he had told Alliance Master Zhang San just now. Without waiting for Sakura to answer, he turned around and asked Alliance Master Zhang San, Alliance Master Zhang San, what do you think of this old monk's suggestion? Alliance Master Zhang San was now alone, and his hatred was mostly added to by Yinxiu Between the Clouds and the Water. Now that the strength of the four immortal Tao sects had been greatly reduced, if they fought with the Tenryu sect again, it would most likely be a lose-lose situation. He himself was very likely to be killed by the Tenryu sect, who in this world was truly unafraid of death. At this moment, Alliance Master Zhang San also gave up the idea of using the sheepskin scroll to threaten Master Changsheng. He only nodded slightly. Great Master's understanding is beyond my expectations. Since that's the case, I won't say anything more. Take out the sheepskin scrolls, and let me see if you really have the so-called sheepskin scrolls. I'll see if you really have the qualifications to enter the jungle. Grandmaster Shang frowned slightly and became cautious. He shook his head and said, "Of course we have sheepskin scrolls. However, you don't seem to have one. Why do you have to look at our sheepskin scrolls?" Ha ha ha. Indra laughed shrilly. According to the records of my Tenryu sect, the method of entering and leaving the forest has already been destroyed. Where did you get the sheepskin scroll? Are you sure that the sheepskin scroll can enter the secret plane? Then he looked at Situ Ping and said, "If I didn't know that the method to enter and exit the secret area was long gone, how could I not pay attention when Situ Liang reported the mysterious actions of Situ Ping and the others to the Tenryu sect? What? The method to enter and exit the forest has already been destroyed?" Grandmaster Sheng was slightly stunned. He turned his head and looked at Nanjing Yi, then looked at the Misty School. "I used this sheepskin scroll to enter the secret plane personally a few years ago, when Wenhai's injuries had already recovered. He was already able to stand up. He cupped his hands and replied, "Furthermore, I've already told Grandmaster Sheng and the others about what I saw on the secret plane." There really is such a magical sheepskin scroll? Indra's tone was a bit hesitant. Then he asked, "Can you let me take a look?" "Of course not. Indra, your Tenryu sect, is trying to gain something without risking anything. It's better for you to follow behind us. There will be benefits for you guys anyways. Why are you in such a hurry?" Nanjing, he was a bit dissatisfied. However, looking at both sides, she still said calmly, "Hee, is that sheepskin scroll with you guys?" Indra seemed to be worried. He asked casually, "It might not be with me. However, if I don't say it, then no one will know where the sheepskin scroll is. Then, no one will be able to enter the secret plane." Alliance Master Zhang San said quickly. "Really?" Indra laughed. "If that's the case, then that's great." Before he finished speaking, Indra waved the hand hidden in his sleeve. A faint black line that was almost invisible to the naked eye shot towards Alliance Master Zhang San. "How dare you!" A shout came from behind Grandmaster Sheng. It was none other than Grandmaster Tiangang's voice. Along with his voice came the wheel of Buddha's radiance. The Dalan Temple's technique was indeed the nemesis of the Heavenly Dragon sect. The wheel of Buddha's Dharma artifact was also worthy of being the Dalan Temple's famous Dharma artifact. Before the wheel of Buddha's Dharma artifact could reach Alliance Master Zhang San, the radiant Dharma artifact had already dispersed the black lines. Indra saw this, and his expression changed slightly. He seemed extremely uncomfortable. "Indra, what are you doing?" Grandmaster Sheng was furious. He also raised the Buddha beads in his hand. Hearing Grandmaster Sheng's question, Indra looked up to the sky and laughed. "Bai Yinxiu from the Shindao sect wants to enter the secret plane with you guys. Do you think my Tenryu sect is the same as her? To tell you the truth, the things in this secret plane, my Tenryu sect doesn't care about them at all. What I want to do today is to destroy this sheepskin scroll. None of your disciples from the 4 immortal Dao sects can enter the secret plane." Huh? Everyone was stunned. It turned out that the Tenryu sect was actually planning to destroy the sheepskin scroll. I understand. Grandmaster Sheng laughed. Presumably, in this secret plane, the 3 ancestors of the immortal Dao sects must have left behind a method to restrain the Tenryu sect. Moreover, this method is extremely vicious. Maybe it can even wipe out the descendants of the Tenryu sect. So, Benefactor is hiding nearby and waiting for us to enter the secret plane to destroy the sheepskin scroll. Cut the crap. Indra waved his hand and shouted, "Go. First, kill Zhang San from the Righteous Alliance. Then, capture the people from a Misty School alive. I want to see how your Dalan Temple and incense cult can enter the secret plane without these 2 sects." When Grandmaster Sheng heard this, he looked at the disciples of the Tenryu sect who were pouncing over like tigers and wolves. He threw his Buddha beads and chanted, "Amit Ba, Shanzai, Shanzai." Watch how I subdue demons. Old bald donkey. Upon seeing this, Sakura stretched out his hand that was hidden in his sleeve. His pale and slender hand was holding a palm-sized magic tool that was shaped like a horsehead zither. However, the horsehead zither that was commonly seen had strings and a lifelike horse head on top of the zither. However, in Sakura's hand, not only did it not have strings, the horse head was also a horse skull. That zither was even surrounded by a faint black fog. Zhu Xin. Grandmaster Shung narrowed his eyes and said, "This Zhu Xin, I have admired it for a long time. Haha, old bald donkey. Then let Zhu Xin have a taste of your heart." Indra laughed shrilly. The horse's head zither suddenly jumped into the air. The faint black fog spread slightly, and an extremely soft sound shot towards Grandmaster Shung. "Indra, your opponent is me." Seeing this, Grandmaster Tiangang threw the wheel of evolution. The Buddhist magic weapon lingering around the Buddha light flew towards the horse's head zither. "I knew you would make a move. However, do you think I'm afraid of you?" Indra muttered and made a gesture. 3 wisps of black fog separated from the horse's head zither and wrapped around the wheel of evolution. Before Indra made his move, he had already ordered his disciples to kill Alliance Master Zhang San and capture the disciples of the Misty School alive. The disciples of the Tenryu sect had already received their leader's order. They waved their weapons and shouted as they rushed towards Alliance Master Zhang San. At this time, Alliance Master Zhang San was surrounded by the disciples of the Incense sect. Peacock and the others had taken the Yawandan pill, and their injuries had been suppressed. Nun Shuezhen had also slowly regained consciousness, but she was too injured to get up. Seeing the disciples of the Tenryu sect attacking, Peacock, Chun, and Swift all drew their weapons and went up to meet them. On the right of Alliance Master Zhang San were the disciples of the Misty School. Similarly, Wen Hai, Lu Yueming, and Lu Qingyang's injuries had also been greatly alleviated. Zhang Xiaohu and Li Jian's bodies were not seriously injured. Seeing the disciples of the Incense sect protecting Alliance Master Zhang San, although they were extremely unhappy, they had to draw their weapons and step forward to meet them. Although the disciples of the Incense sect and the Misty School were injured earlier, they were still first-class experts, especially Peacock, Chun, and Zhang Xiao. The weapons in Peacock and Chun's hands were the magical weapons they obtained from the Yaoshan Immortal Abode. Their cultivation levels were still low, and they could not control the flying swords. However, by infusing their vital energy, they were able to force the sword light out by more than 4 feet. It was a terrifying sight. The jade water sword in Zhang Xiaohu's hand was also about 1 foot long, and the sword light rushed out to meet the disciples of the Tenryu sect. With a wave of his sword, the disciple could not dodge in time, and the sword light cut through the copper rod. There was no sound at all, and the copper rod was cut in half. Zhang Xiaohu's swordsmanship changed again, and the sword light pierced towards the disciple's throat from a strange angle. The disciple hurriedly dodged, but when he saw that he was more than 2 feet away from Zhang Xiaohua, the sword light would not be able to pierce him. He subconsciously let down his guard. However, at this time, the sword light that swept past the disciple's throat suddenly increased and became more than 3 feet long. It had slashed through the disciple's throat. The disciple didn't even have time to react before a flash of blood appeared. Blood continued to flow out from his throat, and his body collapsed on the ground. He was dead, and the blood that flowed out slowly seeped into the ground. From where his blood seeped into, strands of black gas appeared from the ground. Zhang Xiaohu's figure did not change. The sword light of the broken water sword in his hand swallowed and spat out as he fought with the other disciples of the Tenryu sect. Li Jian and the others did the same. They waved their weapons and fought with Zhang Xiaohu and the disciples of the Tenryu sect. When the remaining heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect saw that Sakura had made his move, they also floated up and took out their magic weapons. They howled and flew towards Master Yuan Dao and the others. The one flying in front was Maharaga of the Tenryu sect. His hands were empty except for a small whip made of grayish-white bones in his right hand. When he got closer, Maharaga waved his right hand, and the small whip made of white bones transformed into a 2-foot-long whip made of white bones. The whip made an ear-piercing sound that was like the howling of a malicious spirit. It directly pierced one's mind. The whip stirred up a gust of wind and attacked Master Changsheng from all directions. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. Thank you. Chapter 12:18. When Master Longevity saw Maharaga's white bone whip coming, he took a deep breath and swung the Buddhist beads in his hand. The beads, shimmering with Buddhist light, spun and met the attack. The head of the white bone whip hit the edge of the Buddhist beads first. The Buddhist light expanded and dispersed the snake-like black gas coming out of the whip. The white bone whip seemed to be extremely afraid of the Buddhist light and quickly retracted. But after retracting about half a foot, it suddenly wrapped around the side of the Buddhist beads and inserted itself into the middle of the beads, as if it had a mind of its own. Before the white bone whip could wrap around the Buddhist beads, there were a few crisp pops. The 108 tiny Buddhist beads suddenly scattered and spun separately. They formed a formation and collided with the white bone whip. At this time, the white bone whip had already been surrounded by the Buddhist beads. It couldn't dodge in time. With a few crackling sounds, the white bone whip was hit by several Buddhist beads, causing the white bone whip to flicker with a black brilliance. The black gas on the whip also lessened a little. Haha, old monk Longevity, you really have some skills. You are indeed worthy of being the abbot of the Dalan Temple. Maharaga laughed wildly. After saying a few words, he formed a seal with his right hand and quickly muttered a few words. A few needle-like objects flew out of his hand and pierced into the white bone whip in midair. The moment the needles entered the white bone whip, it was as if a fuse had been ignited. The entire white bone whip suddenly grew 30% bigger. The white bone whip was like an explosion, expanding to about 10 feet and wrapping around the 108 Buddhist beads. When Grandmaster Changsheng threw out his Buddha beads to fight Maharaga, Grandmaster Yuandao's demon, Subduing Pestle, also flew up. It picked up a heavenly king behind Sakura and slammed him down. However, before the demon Subduing Pestle could land, a tall and thin heavenly king jumped up and shouted, "Demon Subduing Pestle? Hee, that's exactly what I want to meet." With that, the heavenly king flew into the air. He didn't take out any magic weapon, but he stretched out a fist. Although the heavenly king was thin and small, his fist was the size of an alms bowl and looked black. With a bang, the fist collided with the demon Subduing Pestle. The heavenly king's body was smashed down 3 feet and almost fell to the ground. And the demon Subduing Pestle was also bounced back. This, Master Yuandao, who had always believed in the power of the demon Subduing Pestle, was dumbfounded. This was the demon Subduing Pestle that had smashed Taoist Hao Yun into meat paste, but it was actually bounced back by the heavenly king of the Tenryu sect with his fist. For a moment, Master Yuandao actually forgot about the demon Subduing Pestle in the air and let it in the air. Ha ha! As heavy as a mountain. The demon Subduing Pestle is just so. As the heavenly king laughed, his body flew up again. When he was 4 feet above the ground, his heroic spirit was unleashed. With a tisk, he tore off his shirt and cloak, revealing his upper body and head. This heavenly king was skinny and not as muscular as Kong Jian. The bronze color of his skin was slightly darker. On his skin, a lifelike dragon was entrenched on this heavenly king's body. The ferocious dragon head was tattooed on this heavenly king's head. Dragon King? Master Yuandao saw this and couldn't help but gasp and blurt out. The Tenryu sect Dragon King had always been strong and had the strength of 1 dragon and 9 elephants. He had never heard of it, but had never personally experienced it. Seeing what the Dragon King had done just now, was it not even more terrifying than the legends? Monkey Yuandao, I have long heard of your reputation as a disciple of the guardian of the Dalan Temple. Today, I would like to see it for myself, so that the world will know that the one with great strength is the one who is respected in the Tenryu sect. The Dragon King roared and flew up again. He clenched his fist at the dragon claw with the dragon tattoo. When he swung his fist, a faint black light flashed at the dragon tattoo. Then, a faint black gas floated out and hit the demon-subduing pestle that was still tumbling. Master Yuan Dao came to his senses and his eyes narrowed. He flew up and waved his hand. The demon-subduing pestle flew back to his hand. Master Yuan Dao waved his hand, and the demon-subduing pestle made a sharp sound as it hit the Dragon King's fist. Master Yuan Dao didn't forget to mock the Dragon King. I will show you that the demon-subduing pestle can subdue a demon like you. Ha ha ha. The Dragon King laughed, and the momentum of his fist didn't change. The two of them started fighting. The Dalan Temple only had Master Yuanming left. The Molu Pearl flew in the air and shone brightly. There were still 2 heavenly kings from the Tenryu sect attacking. When they got close, Master Yuanming turned to look at Nun Shuqing and Nun Jingyi. He pointed his finger, and the Molu Pearl shone brightly and covered the 2 heavenly kings. Hee, old monk Yuanming, do you think that you can withstand the 2 of us? One of the heavenly kings flipped his hand and pulled out a white magic tool from his back. With a casual slash, a fishy wind followed that white blade-like magic tool and attacked the Mao Pearl. Azura blade? You mean Azura? Master Yuanming laughed. I have long heard that Azura Heavenly King's Azura blade is the sharpest. I would like to see how your Azura blade will split my Molu Pearl. Ha ha! Old monk Yuanming is indeed powerful. It really is this Heavenly King. Azura Heavenly King laughed loudly. The Azura blade suddenly shone with a dark red brilliance. A wave of ghostly wails and howls came from the Azura blade. Then, a blood-like scarlet mist came from the Azura blade and collided with the Molu Pearl. With a pu sound, the Molu Pearl was trapped in the bloody mist of the Azura blade. It was as if it was in a quagmire. Then, with a pung sound, the Azura blade struck the Molu Pearl. With a schwa sound, the Molu Pearl shone brightly and opened up a space of 3 feet around the bloody mist. However, this brilliance wasn't as bright as when Master Yuanming took out the Molu Pearl. Master Yuanming caught Azura. Nun Jingyi and Nun Shuqing of the Tenryu sect looked at each other. One waved her peach blossom whip, while the other waved her plain cloud white flag. A whip formed by peach blossoms and a lotus flower formed a brilliance and rushed towards the last heavenly king. The last heavenly king looked extremely dark and was abnormally skinny. However, he was also extremely short. He probably only reached Zhang Xiaohua's waist. However, the dark and skinny heavenly king held an extremely rare magic weapon. It was a pitch-black fork that was longer than the heavenly king's height. The front part of the fork was a ghost head with a ferocious expression. A tongue came out of the ghost head's mouth. The tongue split into 3 parts. They were the 3 prongs of the fork. Hee, 2 old ladies. The heavenly king chuckled, as if he didn't care about Nun Jingyi and Nun Shuqing at all. He waved his trident, and a pitch-black fog was emitted from it. The tip of the trident shone with a cold light. I was originally looking for by Yinxiao. Since you're here, I'll let you have some fun first. Great Yiksha, you're just the last of the 8 divine dragons of the Tenryu sect. What's there to be proud of? Nun Shuqing saw the heavenly king's magic weapon and immediately knew his identity. She sneered. The masters of the Tenryu sect were all caught by the masters of the Dalan Temple. A weakling like you can only be caught by the women of the Tenryu sect. It's only because your Tenryu sect lost people under Yao Mountain that there's no one else. Otherwise, I can deal with you alone. There's no need for the hierarch of the Tenryu sect to do it personally. The great Yiksha seemed to be extremely lecherous and easily angered. After hearing these words, he flew into a rage. His thin and small body suddenly leaped up and dodged the peach blossoms of the peach blossom whip. He pushed his trident forward 3 times, and 9 streaks of black gas shot out from the tip of the trident towards the 2 nuns. As for the great Yiksha himself, he waved his trident around himself, and countless streaks of black gas shot out, blocking in front of the white lotus on the plain cloud-white flag. When the countless white lotuses came into contact with the black mist, it was as if they had met their nemesis. Puff, puff, puff. They all exploded and disappeared. At the same time, the black mist rippled and gradually became thinner. Nun Jing-yi smiled when she saw that she had successfully angered the great Yiksha. Her wrist moved slightly, and the peach blossom whip suddenly changed its direction. It went from top to bottom and hit the black mist above the great Yiksha's head. Crack, crack, crack. The countless peach blossoms on the peach blossom whip cracked, and the black energy above the great Yiksha's head exploded. The great Yiksha was shocked, and he said anxiously, "This old woman also has such a technique?" As she spoke, she raised her trident and thrust it straight at the peach blossom whip. Nun Jing-yi didn't shrink back. The peach blossom whip followed like a shadow and collided with the trident. With a muffled sound, the peach blossom whip was sent flying into the air by the trident. Nun Jing-yi's face turned slightly red at first, but then it quickly faded, revealing a ghastly pale face. The trident was also shaken away diagonally. The brilliance of the trident's tip was extremely dim. Shock appeared on the great Yiksha's pitch-black face again. Actually, in a battle of the immortal Tao, most people used immortal artifacts to mobilize the chi of heaven and earth to activate the immortal artifact's power. It was very rare to use the immortal artifact's body to fight. However, there wasn't enough chi of heaven and earth at the moment. If she only used the immortal artifact's power, the effect would be greatly reduced. It wouldn't be as powerful as when the immortal artifact's body collided. However, this kind of collision would hurt the immortal artifact's cultivation the most. Nun Jing-yi's attack just now had sent the great Yiksha's prongs flying and caused him to suffer a great loss. But she herself had also suffered a slight injury. The great Yiksha suffered a great loss, and the light of his prongs dimmed. His pitch-black face was filled with shock and heartache. In his opinion, the peach blossom whip was a woman's immortal artifact, and its body couldn't compare to the prongs of his prongs. However, when it collided, not only was his prongs damaged, but his cultivation was also shaken. The great Yiksha took a few deep breaths and suppressed his roiling chi and blood. His fighting spirit was even higher. He muttered and used the Tenryu sect's secret technique. The prongs of his prongs hummed, and the ghost face of the prongs seemed to come alive. The prongs of his prongs moved slightly, and the black mist that seeped out gradually solidified. "Old woman, watch Grandpa's power." The great Yiksha roared and swept the prongs of his prongs. His body suddenly flashed, and he stabbed at Nun Shuqing's body. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote monthly and recommend at Chidian. Come. Chapter 1219. In this way, the heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect fought against the Dalan Temple and the incense cult. The disciples of the Tenryu sect fought against the Misty School, the incense cult, and the leader of the alliance of the righteous sects, Zhang San. Only by Yinxiu, between the clouds and the water, was left in front of the dense forest of Five Claws Peak. He held the sky-shaking bow in his hand and looked blankly at the people in the field. Meng, who was standing not far away, was wearing a purple dress, and several disciples of the Tenryu sect who were armed and on guard around her. By Yinxiu, logically speaking, he should have picked up the sky-shaking bow and directly dealt with the remaining disciples of the Tenryu sect. He could even capture Meng and use her as a hostage. The saintess of the Tenryu sect was a person who was slightly inferior to the Sakura. If Bai Yinxiu could capture her, would the Sakura not stop? However, there was only Bai Yinxiu in between the clouds and the water. Leader Zhang Sen had made it clear that as long as between the clouds and the water entered the secret plane, he would never take out the sheepskin scroll. The Dalan Temple and the incense cult were the main culprits who killed the three immortals between the clouds and the water. At this time, they had revealed their true intentions, and certainly would not have any chance with between the clouds and the water. As for this dense forest, Bai Yinshu definitely could not enter. Since he could not enter the dense forest, how could Bai Yinshu continue to work for the path of immortality? She stared blankly at the arena, looking for an opportunity to decide the outcome of the battle. She wanted to see if there was an opportunity for her to take advantage of. She was thinking about whether she should make a move or not, and which side she should help. She also had to consider whether she would be killed if she made a move. Perhaps the best thing to do right now is to run away, Bai Yinshu thought, looking left and right. However, when he saw Meng Hao off in the distance, he couldn't help but be surprised. Bai Yinshu had never seen Meng between the clouds and the water. She had only heard from the disciples of the sect that she was a disciple of the inner sect, Zi Xia. The first time she saw Meng was at the martial arts assembly of the Huayu Palace of the Cult of Fragrance. At that time, Meng was very cute. She was standing beside Zhang Xiaohua, like a cute and lovable little bird. At that time, Bai Yinshu already knew that Meng was the holy maiden of the Tenryu sect. She was terrified and didn't dare to stare at her for too long. Between the clouds and the water wasn't on par with the Tenryu sect. She was really afraid that Meng would vent her anger on her for being captured. Of course, although she didn't look closely, she still had a deep impression of the holy maiden of the Tenryu sect, the one and only holy maiden of Jianghu. Should I capture her? Bai Yinshu's previous thought arose again. Perhaps I can gain some benefits from this? While Bai Yinshu was lost in thought, Meng seemed to have sensed something. She turned her gaze away from the battle in the field and met Bai Yinshu's gaze. Bai Yinshu was shocked. She felt that Meng's eyes were filled with endless bewitchment and mockery. It made her feel as if her divine sense was being sucked in. Bai Yinshu stumbled in her panic. It took her a lot of effort to shift her gaze away. She didn't dare to look in Meng's direction again. She thought to herself, the Tenryu sect's cultivation method is so domineering. This Meng has only been back for a few days. How could she have improved her cultivation by so much? Does this Tenryu sect's saintess specialize in the cultivation method of intimidating one's mind? Meng Hao smiled when she saw that Bai Yinshu had tactfully avoided meeting her. It was as if Bai Yinshu was just a clownfish that couldn't make a big wave no matter how hard he tried. She then looked at the sky. There was no frown. She then looked at the people fighting in the field. Although there were many ordinary disciples in the Tenryu sect, their martial arts were inferior to that of Zhang Xiaohu and the rest. Peacock and the rest seemed to be handling the situation with ease. However, because they were injured by the sky-shaking drum, they didn't have time to heal their injuries. Once they started fighting, it was obvious that they weren't in good condition. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, there weren't many casualties. Looking at Master Tiangang, Sakura, and the rest, it was different from the fight between the immortal Dao seniors at the foot of Yao Mountain. At the right time, the various sects couldn't choose which sect will be the first to enter Immortal's abode. According to the rules of Jianghu, the one with the biggest fist would be the first to enter Immortal's abode. Although it was said that they wouldn't show mercy, the leaders of the various sects didn't make a move. Only the seniors of the various sects used their immortal Dao skills to fight for the sake of the future agreement and the reputation of the various sections. If it wasn't for the Tenryu sect's sneak attack, the Dalan Temple lost Master Yuan Wu. The Incense sect lost Abbess Shu Jie, causing the Incense sect and the Dalan Temple to have a grudge. Abbess Shu Qing changed sides and challenged the Dalan Temple together with between the clouds and the water. Later on, the nirvana of the phoenix attracted the vital energy of heaven and earth, triggering the bloodthirsty emotions of the crowd. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been bloodshed at the foot of Yao Mountain. Today, the heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect finally found such a good opportunity to gather everyone from the immortal Dao here. Moreover, the immortal Dao had internal strife, causing everyone to be injured. The Tenryu sect had the upper hand in terms of strength. The Tenryu sect had the intention to finish this battle in one fell swoop, so they didn't show any mercy at all. The heart executioner in Sakura's hand was already spewing out black gas from the 7 apertures of the skull. The black gas was like a spirit snake, winding around the mortal wheel and slowly entangling it. The Dalan Temple's technique was the nemesis of the Tenryu's sex technique, and the faint Buddha's light was also the nemesis of the black gas. Early on, when Master Tiangang and Sakura were fighting, the black gas that Sakura released was purified by the faint Buddha's light and disappeared between heaven and earth without a trace. However, after fighting for a while, the Buddha's light was only a little bit. Master Tiangang was injured twice, and the magic power in his body was already somewhat exhausted. Sakura was also strange. Previously, he was injured by Master Tiangang, and that injury was caused by both of his hands passing through his body. At this moment, it seemed that Sakura was using some kind of secret technique of the Tenryu sect, so it was impossible to see the injury from a month ago. The black gas in the heart executioner became more and more concentrated, and it almost enveloped the entire mortal wheel. Moreover, the black gas was like silk that entangled the mortal wheel tightly. Master Tiangang felt as if the mortal wheel had fallen into a quagmire. His divine sense was already somewhat unable to move the mortal wheel flexibly. And the most terrible thing was that the reason why the heart executioner was called heart executioner was because this horsehead zither could make a mournful sound like a ghost cry, and it was like a sharp sword that pierced into the opponent's heart. Master Tiangang might not have been able to care about this kind of sound attack if it was on a normal day. However, just an hour ago, the ancient divine weapons, the sky-shaking drum and the sky-breaking hammer, had appeared here. Under the desperate urging of Master Hao Yun, these killing weapons had already injured Master Tiangong's heart meridian. If he could meditate for a few years, Master Tiangong's heart meridian might be able to recover, and he wouldn't be afraid of the heart executioner then. However, when it rains, it pours. Master Tiangang had just killed Master Hao Yun when Sakura came and used the heart executioner to attack Master Tiangong's heart meridian. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, Master Tiangang already felt a dull pain in his heart meridian, which had already affected the use of his magic power. If we fight for another 2 hours, I'm afraid I'll really fall in the hands of Sakura. Master Tiangang thought in his heart, but then he suddenly realized the Tenryu sect may not only want to destroy the sheepskin scroll. They only need to destroy the operation of the 4 sects to enter the secret land, and we can only wait until next year to enter the secret land again. And we're all injured, so they have enough time to deal with us and destroy the sheepskin scroll. They have a whole year's time. Maybe in the secret land, there really is a secret left by the immortal Tao's 3 ancestors to deal with the Tenryu sect? Master Tiangang suddenly realized this. Thinking of this, Master Tiangang felt an incomparable pain in his heart meridian. It was so painful that Master Tiangang almost cried out. He took the time to look at the sky. Although it was still covered with dense clouds and snowflakes, the sky was already bright. Master Tiangang felt that there was not much time left until the first ray of sunlight rose. But the whole sky is covered by clouds. How can the sunlight pass through? Master Tiangang thought of this question for no reason. Poof! He spat out a mouthful of blood essence. The blood essence was injected into the wheel of divination with Master Tiangong's incantation. Master Tiangong's eyes suddenly lit up. The wheel of divination was the same as Master Tiangong's eyes. Suddenly, a buzzing sound came from the wheel of divination. While the surrounding rings were rotating rapidly, the cross in the middle suddenly broke away from the ring and shot towards Sakura like lightning. Sakura was startled. He flicked his hand, and a wisp of black silk was formed. It guided the black gas that came out of the heart executioner and formed a net in front of the cross-shaped lightning. When the lightning touched the black gas net, it made a sizzling sound. The black gas was like snow that was poured with hot water. It instantly melted. Sakura was surprised. He pointed his finger, and more black gas wrapped around the lightning. However, the lightning didn't stop there. It kept forming a net of black gas, and it was about to shoot in front of Sakura. Puff! Sakura frowned. He had no choice but to open his mouth and spit out a mouthful of black gas. The black gas gradually turned into the shape of a short sword in the air, and it quickly blocked in front of the lightning. The lightning seemed to have exhausted its strength. It was blocked by the black gas and stopped. Hee, old bald donkey, what else? Before Sakura could sneer, the lightning suddenly split into two. One of the two halves was even faster, and when Sakura wasn't paying attention, it shot toward the skull of the heart executioner. With a pop sound, the skull was actually pierced through, turning into a few white pieces that floated in the air. The black gas within the skull suddenly burst out, enveloping the surrounding area. Old bald donkey! Sakura was furious. Just as he was about to pick up the pieces floating beside the zither, a kind of vigilance suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart. He didn't think and didn't care about the pieces. He immediately soared up and was about to float away. However, at this moment, at the place where Sakura Yaoshan was ambushed by Master Tiangang, the same pair of white jade-like palms appeared in the same posture. It was Master Tiangang who used the Wheel of Evolution to make the final attack, attracting Sakura's attention. As for himself, he didn't care about the corrosion of the heart executioner's black gas. He forcefully channeled his magic power and went deep into the black gas. Using the same method, he heavily injured Sakura again. Please cast a monthly vote. Please cast a recommendation vote. Please collect. Please tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to come Chidian. Come to cast a recommendation vote or monthly vote. Chapter 1220. Sakura's blood-curdling screams shook the 9 heavens. That was anger, that was grief, that was a kind of remorse and guilt. Sakura had calculated everything, but he didn't expect that great Master Tiangang would actually also imitate Taoist Master Hao Yun, disregarding everything, and actually rushed into the black gas that was incomparably poisonous to great Master Tiangang. And he himself actually had this old, bald donkey stab into the same part of his body twice. Just as Master Tiangang was about to wave his hand and destroy Sakura's body again, Sakura had already moved. Like a black wind, he instantly disappeared from Master Tiangong's hand. Master Tiangang was already seriously injured, and with the sharp pain in his heart meridian, his true chi stagnated, and he immediately fell to the ground. How could he continue to pursue Sakura? While Sakura and Master Tiangong's battle was progressing, the battles of several people beside them were also beginning to take shape. The one closest to Master Tiangang was Master Longevity. Master Longevity had already spread out his Buddhist beads at the very beginning. The 108 small Sarara Buddhist beads shone with boundless Buddhist light. Although the white bone whip was extremely powerful, and after several head-on clashes, the dozens of Sarara Buddhist beads dimmed, but the Buddhist beads lived up to their reputation as Buddhist holy objects. Under Master Longevity's control, they formed different arrays, attacking and defending well, and still managed to suppress the sharpness of the white bone whip. Seeing that he was already at a disadvantage, Maharaga's expression was extremely ugly. His eyes darted around, and a resolute look appeared on his face. At that moment, the white bone whip lashed down, and the Buddhist beads turned into a shield formation to meet it. Just as the white bone whip touched the Buddhist beads, Maharaga opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. Then, he tapped with his fingers, and a small blood-shaped array instantly formed. Once the blood array was formed, it immediately shot toward the white bone whip and stuck to the shaft of the white bone whip. Crunch, crunch, crunch. After the white bone whip stuck to the blood array, a blood-red color spread out. After it turned completely blood-red, it immediately turned into countless tiny blood-red beads that whistled toward Master Longevity and the 108 Sarira Buddhist beads. Bang, bang, bang. Dozens of crisp sounds rang out. It was the sound of the bones and the Sarira beads colliding and exploding. Every time it rang out, Maharaga's face lost a bit of color. Every time it rang out, Grandmaster Longevity's face also turned a bit paler. Dozens of blood-colored bones penetrated the Buddhist sorora beads and shot straight towards Master Longevity. Seeing the white bones close in on him, Grandmaster Longevity clenched his teeth and waved his sleeves. It was the Heaven and Earth sleeve ability, and he wanted to collect the dozens of white bones. Unexpectedly, just as he collected the white bones into his sleeves, Grandmaster Longevity's expression changed drastically. Popping sounds came from his sleeves, and the white bones in his sleeves actually exploded. Grandmaster Longevity hurriedly flung his sleeves, and the white bones in his sleeves flew toward Maharaga along with the explosion. Ha 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 ha, old bald donkey. Do you know what it means to reap what you sow? Maharaga grinned viciously and waved his hand nonchalantly. Several streams of faint black chi stopped the remaining dozen or so skeletons in front of him. But just as Maharaga was mocking Grandmaster Longevity, one of the skeletons suddenly moved. It flew through the black chi Maharaga had set up and shot right into Maharaga's chest. That small sword pierced right through his chest. When Maharaga saw it with his divine sense, he realized that it was the Dahlin Temple's magic weapon, the demon's slaying sword. The demon's slaying sword. Why is it in your hands? Maharaga asked in panic as he used the Tenryu sect's secret technique to stop his wound. That demon-slaying sword was the absolute nemesis of the Black Chi. All the magic weapons of the Tenryu sect were extremely afraid of it. Ha, cough, cough. Grandmaster Longevity had just laughed a few times when he started coughing again. Presumably, his injuries were also very serious. After coughing a few times, Grandmaster Longevity straightened up and said in a low voice, "This old monk is the abbot of the Dahlin Temple. Isn't this old monk the one who uses all the magic weapons? Grandmaster Yuan Wu has passed away. Isn't this demon-slaying sword left behind by this old monk?" As he spoke, he pointed his finger. His face was slightly flushed, and the demon-slaying sword returned. The battle between Grandmaster Tiangang and Indra, as well as the battle between Grandmaster Longevity and Maharaga, was spectacular. However, the battle between Dragon King and Yuan Dao was the most entertaining. The Dragon King was so engrossed in the battle that he tore off all his clothes, leaving only his private parts to cover. The Dragon King's body was painted with a huge dragon from head to toe. As the Dragon King twisted and turned in the air, the dragon seemed to come alive. As the saying goes, dragons follow the clouds and tigers follow the wind. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, thin black clouds appeared around the Dragon King's body. Following those black clouds, the dragon on the Dragon King's body expanded and shrunk in the clouds, abnormally vigorous. Pung, pung, pung. The whole place was filled with the sounds of the Dragon King and Grandmaster Yuan Dao's demon slaying pestle colliding. The Dragon King's body was also unusual. His fists were even weirder and did not match the Dragon King's slender body. However, these fists did not seem to be made of flesh at all. Perhaps these fists were the magic weapons that the Dragon King had been refining all this time. The demon-subduing pestle was something that Zhang Xiaohua had encountered before. Even with Zhang Xiaohua's divine strength, she did not dare to face the demon-subduing pestle head-on. She could only use the great wisdom sword to deal with it. As for the Dragon King, he had been using his fists to fight the demon-subduing pestle from the beginning to the end. Moreover, as time passed, the true energy in Grandmaster Yuan Dao's body gradually dried up. The demon-subduing pestle became lighter and lighter, while the Dragon King's fist became stronger and stronger. Every time, the demon-subduing pestle would be blown away by the wind from the fists. Seeing that he was at a disadvantage, Grandmaster Yuan Dao could not help but have other thoughts. He flicked the sweat on his forehead and glanced at the Dragon King. Seeing that the Dragon King was excitedly raising his fist and exerting more force on the demon-subduing pestle, Grandmaster Yuan Dao flicked his sleeves lightly. Then, he took a deep breath and shouted, "What a good Dragon King, this old monk! However, before he could leap up, he fell to the ground. "Huh!" The Dragon King shouted. "Old bald donkey, hurry up and get up. This daddy has not had enough yet." As he spoke, he swung his fist and flew towards Grandmaster Yuandao. But just as his fist was about to reach Grandmaster Yuandao's chest, a thin black ray of light suddenly appeared and pierced into the Dragon King's back. This black ray of light was the black needle that Grandmaster Yuandao had used the Heaven and Earth box to collect from Taoist Master Hao Yun. Since he knew that Taoist Master Hao Yun was the culprit who injured Grandmaster Yuandao, how could Grandmaster Yuandao return it to him? To think that he would be able to use it here today. Old bald donkey. When did you learn to be so despicable? The Dragon King did not care about the attack at all. He had cultivated the Tenryu sect's secret technique, and his entire body was tempered like a magical weapon. The tiny black ray of light would not be able to pierce through his skin, but that's just how things are. When you think it's impossible, it just happens. That tiny black ray of light flashed and disappeared into the Dragon King's skin. The Dragon King let out a cry of shock and immediately rolled on the ground. He activated the secret technique in his body and tried to force the black ray of light out. But this black ray of light was a mysterious object. Back then, Grandmaster Yuandao had died under this black ray of light. Even though Grandmaster Yuandao did not have the secret technique to refine it and did not have the ability to control the black ray of light, once it entered the Dragon King's skin, it immediately flowed through the Dragon King's blood vessels and into his heart. Grandmaster Yuandao was overjoyed when he saw the Dragon King panicking. He immediately jumped up from the ground and waved his hand. The demon subduing pestle came crashing down like a mountain. The Dragon King roared and straightened his body. He raised his fist, and with a loud bang, the demon subduing pestle was sent flying. However, the Dragon King's face changed. The black ray of light that he had blocked earlier was now moving closer to his heart. Good. Grandmaster Yuandao seemed to know that the Dragon King was in an awkward position. He used what little spiritual energy he had and slammed the demon subduing pestle down like a mountain. The Dragon King could only retreat as he fought. Grandmaster Yuanming was perhaps the most stable of the Grandmasters in the Dalan Temple. In other words, he was the only one who could fight evenly with the Tenryu sect's Heavenly King and was at a slight disadvantage. The Azura Heavenly King of the Tenryu sect had always been known for his battle prowess. He was also a bloodthirsty and cruel person. The Azura saber in his hand was passed down from the ancient Sakura Buddha. In the past 10,000 years, it had drunk the blood of countless people and reaped the lives of countless people. When the Azura saber was swung, it was filled with the pungent smell of blood, and the faint wails of countless vengeful spirits could be faintly heard. Grandmaster Yuanming did not have many magical instruments. The Mao bead was one of the few magical instruments in the Buddhist sect. However, Grandmaster Yuanming did not have any great supernatural powers and could not use the power of the Mao bead. He could only use his spiritual energy to drive the Mao bead to strike like a pellet. Of course, this method could not compare to the true power of the Azura saber. Fortunately, the Mao bead shone brightly and suppressed the blood and black energy of the Azura saber. Grandmaster Yuanming also held his ground. The Mao bead did not fly more than 10 feet away from him. The Buddha's light protected his entire body firmly. He did not seek to make any mistakes. Therefore, although Grandmaster Yuanming was at a disadvantage, he was not in any danger in the time it took to smoke a cigarette. Beside Azura was Yiksha King. The ghost face's three-pronged trident was being used smoothly. Endless black energy was spat out from the ghost face's tongue, tightly entangling Nun Shu Qing and Nun Jing Yi on the opposite side. However, although there was a lot of black energy and it was extremely corrosive, the plain cloud white flag lived up to its reputation. Every time it waved, countless white lotuses would appear and block the black energy. Although the white lotuses were not as useful as the Buddha's light of the Dalan Temple, the white lotuses would constantly explode and annihilate most of the black energy. As for Yiksha King's trident, Nanjing, he was not afraid at all. Her peach blossom whip danced and turned into peach blossoms. The peach blossoms changed formations, and she always had endless methods to block the trident in front of the two, rendering Yiksha King's attacks ineffective. However, there was still one thing that made Nanjing Yi and Nun Shuqing angry, and that was Yiksha King's abnormal lecherousness. Although the two nuns were rather old, Yiksha King's mouth was still flirtatious. He rambled on, and his words were very unpleasant. The two nuns became more and more furious. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. Chapter 12:21. Shuqing, your body is not bad. You can even withstand my soaring pole strike. TSK. When you were young, you practiced a lot. You are getting stronger as you get older. Yiksha King laughed and said, Jingyi, your move is not good. Your strength is too weak. Did Changsheng from the Dalan Temple teach you this? Oh no, it should be Changsheng who used it on you. Yes, it must be. That old monk always has tender feelings for the fair sex. Of course, he would be gentle with you. Good girl, you must have enjoyed it. But have the two of you try the candles? It is very painful and ecstatic. Jing, he was furious. She didn't need to transform the peach blossom whip in her hand to whip Yiksha King's face. The whip stirred up the wind and seemed to be able to tear the space apart. The Yiksha King flicked his trident and hit the top of the whip in a split second. Puff! A few peach blossoms on the tip of the whip were smashed. When the peach blossoms reappeared, their shadows were already dim. Why? Jing, did I hit the nail on the head? What are you afraid of? Love between a man and a woman is a matter of course. Monks are also men. Oh right, you preach the incense cult and call yourself a nun. Could it be that you want to hook up with a monk from the Dalan Temple? Yiksha King damaged the peach blossom whip a little. He was pleased with himself and said with a lustful look in his eyes, Oh, Shuqing, how did Yuan die? Others may not know, but I know very well. Didn't you suck him dry? Yes, I know. Did Shu Jie snatch him from you? Lord Sakura of the Tenryu sect killed Shu Jie, just as you wished. Didn't you want her dead for a long time? You go to hell. Shuqing Nun had been holding it in for a long time. When she heard Yiksha King slandering the junior sister she had just lost, she couldn't help but feel angry. She waved the white flag, and countless lotuses appeared. Under Shuqing Nun's control, the lotuses turned into a flying sword and pierced toward Yiksha King's chest. The Yiksha King chuckled coldly and flew forward. He waved his trident and spat out black gas from his mouth. The black gas quickly fused with the trident. The two empty eyes on the ghost face turned into two beams of black light and shot straight at the flying sword. With a sizzling sound, the flying sword slowly melted into two halves. Then, the black gas on the tips of the trident grew stronger and gradually melted the remaining lotus flowers. Ouch! Yiksha King suddenly jumped up into the air as if his butt was on fire. Sure enough, there was a peach blossom whip under his butt. It was like a long spear piercing his butt from bottom to top. Alas, it would have been better if the whip didn't hit him. Now that it hit him, Yiksha King started to drool. You bitch, you really want to kill me. I only told you a little about your relationship, and you did this to me. You said, I like women the most. I don't like women behind my back. Have you been fooled by the monks of the Dalan Temple too much? That's why you thought of doing the same thing? As a result, the faces of the two nuns looked as if they were dripping blood. They both shouted loudly. Although the shadow of the peach blossom whip dimmed, Nun Jing still activated the little true chi in her body and directly lashed it at Yiksha King. Nun Shuqing also struggled to wave the plain, cloud white flag. Ignoring the broken meridians in her body, she poured true chi into the flag as if it was free. The two nuns of the aroma cult were infuriated by Yiksha King's words. They injected the last of their genuine chi into their weapons. The peach blossoms on the peach blossom whip shone brilliantly, and the lotus blossoms on the plain cloud white flag shone brightly. Both weapons were launched at Yiksha King, who was holding his buttocks and leaping into the air. My goodness, you two still have energy left? I'm already exhausted. Although Yiksha said this, his body that was suspended in midair seemed to be dissatisfied. His short body shook and suddenly expanded. His body rose to a height of more than 3 inches. His ugly, pitch-black face suddenly elongated and his small eyes widened. He shouted loudly, "Huh!" and threw out the trident in his hand that had been accumulating power for a long time. When the 3-pronged fork rushed out of Yiksha King's hand, it suddenly expanded just like Yiksha King. When it stabbed down with extreme speed, a pitch-black brilliance flashed, and the shadow of another 3-pronged fork appeared from the ghost face. The shadow of the 3-pronged fork seemed to be solid as it whistled and rushed towards Nun Jing, while the main body of the 3-pronged fork stabbed towards Nun Shuqing. With 2 loud rumbles, the 3-pronged trident swayed and turned into wisps of black smoke, disappearing from the world. Yiksha King's expression changed. His body shrunk, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Nun Jing, he was in an even worse state. All of the peach blossoms on her peach blossom whip were annihilated, leaving only a soft silk ribbon floating in the air. There were countless bright peach blossoms imprinted on it. Nun Jing Yi's body flew backward, and she fell to the ground with a bang. Blood flowed out of her mouth, and her face was abnormally pale. At the same time, on Nun Shuqing's side, with a boom and a tearing sound, the lotus flowers around the Suiyun white flag completely dissipated. A large tear appeared on the flag's surface. Like Nun Jing Yi, Nun Shuqing fell to the ground. Although she didn't vomit blood, her face was even paler than Nun Jing Yi's. With the Suiyun white flag broken, Nun Shuqing's mind was injured. It was several times worse than Nun Jing Yi's. The 3-pronged fork that collided with the white flag also shone brightly with black light. Then, it lost its luster and fell to the ground with a clang. It was no different from an ordinary copper rod. Yiksha King spat out another mouthful of blood. His thin body curled into a ball in the air. After struggling for a long time, he couldn't stand firm and fell from the sky as well. Yiksha King actually fought against 2 nuns from the incense cult. It had to be said that the Tenryu sect was indeed the #1 sect in the pugilistic world. There were only 5 heavenly kings from the sect: Sakura, Dragon King, Yiksha King, Azura Heavenly King, and Maharaga Heavenly King. Yet, they were able to fight against the immortal path experts from the incense cult and the Dawn Temple. If this sect was in the pugilistic world on a normal day, who would be qualified to compete with them? Speaking of which, Grandmaster Tiangang had heavily injured Sakura, and he himself had also fallen onto the ground, powerless to chase after him. When he stood up with difficulty, other than the battle between Azura, Heavenly King, and Grandmaster Yuan Ming, which had no result for the time being, everyone had a rough idea of what was going on. The 2 sects of immortal Tao could be considered to have the upper hand. The disciples of the Misty School and the Incense Cult were heavily injured. However, they had also gained the most. All the disciples from the Tenryu sect had been killed on the spot. Master Tiangang couldn't help but smile when he saw this. At this moment, a 5-colored light suddenly appeared in the eastern sky. Following the light, the surrounding thick black clouds were like boiling water, gradually rolling around the light. After a short while, a round clear sky appeared in the middle of the light. A blood-red sun peeked out from the round sky and gradually rose along the clear sky. At the same time, a shadow quickly swept over from the west side of the dense forest, coincidentally passing between 2 jujube trees at the edge of the dense forest. Then, the shadow quickly retreated and disappeared without trace. The multicolored light in the eastern sky flickered a few times before disappearing. Looking at the other side of the sky, it was once again filled with rolling dark clouds, completely covering the round, clear sky from before. There was not even a trace of the morning sun. Quick! Master Tiangong's face lit up with joy. He forcefully channeled his magic power, and flew to the front of the Misty School disciples. He waved his hand and threw a sheepskin scroll to High. He shouted, "Quick, follow the method you used last time and enter through these 2 jujube trees." Then he pointed to the 2 jujube trees at the side and flew to the opposite side of Sakura. He looked at Sakura, who had just climbed up from the ground with blood flowing from his body. He waved his hand, and the wheel of evolution that was floating in the air just now slowly flew back to the top of his head. High took the sheepskin scroll and was slightly stunned. Then he understood and said loudly to Zhang Xiao, sect leader Zhang, "Quickly take out the sheepskin scroll and smear your blood on the back of it." Then he turned his head and shouted to Alliance Master Zhang San and Peacock of the Incense Cult, "Quick, take out your sheepskin scrolls and smear your blood on the back." Alliance Master Zhang San woke up and immediately stood up. He took out a sharp dagger from his bosom and walked over to the righteous Alliance disciples who had died on the ground. He casually picked up a corpse and used the dagger to cut open the skin on the back of that person's head. He stretched out his hand and took out a small and thin oil bag. When he opened it, there was a sheepskin scroll inside. It was hidden so well. Just as Alliance Master Zhang San said, if he did not do it himself, who would have thought that he would hide the sheepskin scroll in the back of an ordinary disciple's head? The incense cult was even simpler. Chen Chun raised her hand and took out a jade hairpin from her hair. She twisted off the phoenix head of the jade hairpin and pulled out the sheepskin scroll that had been rolled into a thin stick. The 4 people saw that the sheepskin scrolls were gathered and smeared their blood on the back of the sheepskin scroll. Sure enough, the sheepskin scroll gradually revealed writing. However, at this moment, there was a sudden change. A figure flashed by, and before the 4 of them could react, their hands were empty. The 4 sheepskin scrolls were snatched by that person. Everyone was shocked. They raised their heads and looked at the person in midair. They were dumbfounded. At this moment, Sakura of the Tenryu sect was closely watched by Master Tiangang and could not take a single step. Maharaga was injured by Master Changsheng and had almost no strength to move. Yiksha King was injured by Nun Jingyi and Nun Shuqing and also fell to the ground. The Dragon King was injured by Master Yuandao's blacklight and was struggling to deal with Master Yuandao's demon, subduing Pestle. He also had to spare some magic power to prevent the black light from entering his heart meridian, so it was impossible for him to snatch the sheepskin scrolls. The only one who had the upper hand, Azura King, was also entangled by Master Yuandao and would not have the chance to snatch the sheepskin scrolls. The only one who had a chance to come over was the sect master of Between the Clouds and the Water, by Yin Xiu, who had been wandering around looking for an opportunity. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. The world was nothing more than this. Please vote monthly. Please vote for recommendation. Please bookmark. Please tip. Chapter 1222. However, when everyone present was certain that the person who had the ability to snatch the 4 sheepskin scrolls was by Yin Xiu of Aqua Cloud Club, when they saw the person who stopped in midair, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. That was because the person standing in midair with a frown and looking down at her hand was none other than the purple-clothed dream. The dream that Zhang Xiaohua had been yearning for day and night. The dream of being the saintess of the Tenryu sect. By Yin Xiu, whom everyone suspected, was standing in the distance in horror. He covered his mouth with one hand and stared blankly at Meng, who was in the air. Meng ignored everyone's astonished eyes and looked at the parchment scroll from left to right while muttering, How could this be? Wasn't the jade slip used to enter and exit the dense forest destroyed? How could there be such a strange thing in the world? Where did this parchment come from? Meng's face lit up with a strange expression when she heard these questions. But in an instant, Meng raised her head and looked in a direction in the distance. She said with a smile, "No matter where this parchment came from, I'll just destroy it." As she said this, she rubbed her hands and was about to destroy it when Chun Chun, a disciple of the incense sect, called out, "Junior Sister Zixiao 8. Meng was stunned. She slowly turned her head and looked at Qin Shun. She smiled and said, Qin Shun, are you talking to me? Qin Shun was stunned and said, Of course I'm talking to you, Zixia. Then he turned to look at Nun Jingyi and the others and said, Junior sister Zixia, I know you're the saintess of the Tenryu sect and should work for the Tenryu sect, but you have to think about it. When you lost your memory, it was Master Jingxian of the Incense sect who brought you back to the sect, accepted you as a disciple, taught you martial arts, and took good care of you. In the Valley of the Orchid at dusk, I also took care of you all the time and saved you from the herd of beasts. When Ren Xiaoyao broke into the Incense sect with a sword, it was our sect master who helped you too. Even in the martial arts competition, you left as you wished, and the sect master didn't say anything. Do you still remember? When you left Lingering Fragrance Peak, did you say anything? When we met, you even wanted me to call you Junior Sister Zixia. You said it yourself. I called you Junior Sister Zixia. Why didn't you agree? Ha 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 ha, Jingxian, do you think I want to preach the incense cult to you? If Jingxian hadn't done this out of the goodness of her heart, I wouldn't be like this right now. Before Dream could finish speaking, she suddenly frowned and muttered. Her eyes, which had been full of life, suddenly became hollow and painful. Dream screamed and fell down, rolling on the ground. Get out! Dream screamed and jumped up from the ground. She blinked and looked at everyone with a confused expression. Junior Sister Zixia? When Chun Chin saw this, he suppressed his astonishment and said in a low voice, Oh, Senior Sister Chun, you're here too? Meng, he stroked his messy hair and forced a smile. Chun Chin rolled his eyes and said with a smile, Yes, we're here. Give me the sheepskin scroll in your hand. Sheepskin scroll? Dream naturally looked at the sheepskin scroll in his hand. Yeah. Sakura shouted from a distance, Destroy it quickly. This sheepskin scroll must be destroyed. This. Dream hesitated. At this moment, a surprised voice came from a distance. Dream, but this voice suddenly stopped. When everyone looked over, they saw that Zhang Xiaohua, who had disguised as Master Panin, was flying over from a distance. However, at this time, Zhang Xiaohua's face was red and his mouth was open, as if he had screwed up. But then, before Zhang Xiaohua could hide anything, he was shocked by the tragic situation in the field. Then, he suddenly looked up. When he saw that everyone in the Misty School was still alive and his second brother was only injured, the stone in his heart fell to the ground. He did not care about what he said to Dream. After all, Pan and did not know Dream. So he only took a deep look at Dream, turned around, and flew to Zhang Xiaohu's side. Zhang Xiaohua's appearance could be considered to have solidified the advantage of the four immortal sects. Seeing that the situation was not good, the Azura Heavenly King also put away the Azura sword and stood there steadily, quietly watching the development of the situation in the field. Master Zhang, are you okay? This what's going on? Zhang Xiaohua looked at the dead bodies on the ground, looked at Bai Yinxiu who was a distance away, and then at the five heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect beside him. He was very confused. Master Panin, Peacock said calmly, The situation here is very complicated. I can't explain it in a short time. Please, the four sheepskin scrolls of the four immortal sects have been taken away by the Tenryu sects. Zixia, Master Pan, please hurry and get the scrolls back so that we can enter this secret place. If any of the scrolls are destroyed, our years of hope will go up in smoke. Zixia, she could take away the scrolls? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and blurted out, Why can't she? Peacock was stunned and asked back, Oh, it's nothing. Zhang Xiaohua turned around and saw that Dream was indeed holding the four scrolls in her hands. Zhang Xiaohua walked forward and said in a low voice, Miss Zixia, please pass these four scrolls to I. I promise that no one will hurt you here. But a pensive look appeared in Dream's eyes as she calmly said, My heavenly dragon sect has suffered heavy casualties. The five heavenly kings are all injured. Can you guarantee that they won't fall? Zhang Xiaohua was hesitant. Zhang Xiaohua definitely had the right to decide the current situation, but He was representing the Misty School. If he let the Tenryu sect's heavenly kings go, the Misty School would stand on the side of the Tenryu sect, and the three immortal sects would definitely go against the Misty School. But if he killed the Tenryu sect's heavenly kings, would Dream agree to it? In an instant, Zhang Xiaohua understood that his previous thoughts were ridiculous. Zhang Xiaohua turned around helplessly and looked at Zhang Xiao. He wanted to hear his second brother's opinion. Master Zhang, what should we do? Zhang Xiao knew about the relationship between Dream and Zhang Xiaohua. He was also helpless. Just when Zhang Xiaohua was at a loss and Peacock, Chun Chun and the rest wanted to persuade him, Dream's voice came from behind Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua, you're awake? But you can stop pretending. Oh. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked and turned to look at Dream. The pain on Dream's face had just subsided, and there was still sweat on his forehead. The panic in his eyes was replaced by a mocking look. Zhang Xiaohua was about to explain when Dream laughed again. I followed you all the way from Lingxiang Peak to the Dalan Temple to deliver the letter. We were then captured and brought to between the clouds and the water together. How could I not know what happened to you? I know better than anyone how many immortals there are in this world. Where would Master Panin come from? But, Zhang Xiaohua, your disguise. TSK, it's really good. Even I can't see through it. You're not Dream. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. Where did Dream go? Who are you? Of course I'm not Dream. I'm the saint of the Tenryu sect, yeah? Dream sneered. Your face has been exposed. Why don't you quickly restore your flat nose and small eyes? That look, it's quite pleasing to the eye. It's much better than that little boy with white flower. Zhang Xiaohua's face was flushed red. He glanced sideways at Nanjing Yi, who was extremely shocked, and Master Changsheng. In the distance, Bai Yinqiu's eyes were wide open. She had never thought that there would be so many changes today. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and withdrew the genuine qi of the shape-shifting spell, revealing his original appearance. You. The others were not surprised, but Ye, who was facing Zhang Xiaohua, suddenly shouted hysterically, Xiaohua? Master Xiao, why are you here? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. Why did the name Xiaohua sound so familiar? Then he realized that he seemed to have heard of it in Yu Mingxin's primordial spirit projection. At the same time that Zhang Xiaohua came to his senses, Ye also came to his senses, and he cursed loudly. Zhang Xiaohua, you can disguise yourself as anyone, but you just had to disguise yourself as Xiaohua. Quickly return to your original form. Otherwise, I won't be courteous to you. Zhang Xiaohua was helpless. This was his original appearance. However, after thinking for a while, he still reverted to his original flat nose and small eyes. When you saw Zhang Xiaohua's appearance, he let out a long breath and scolded. In the future, you can disguise yourself as anyone, but you can't disguise yourself as him. Otherwise, I won't forgive you. Xiaohua, who's that? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. Don't ask. You'll never meet him. You frowned. Don't mention this name in the future. It's a dream. Zhang Xiaohua answered casually, but immediately realized that this was not a dream. She sneered. Where's my dream? Where is she? Where's the dream? Isn't it right in front of you? But you insist on calling me a dream. Then, of course, I'm a dream. You chuckled. But Zhang Xiaohua didn't know how to answer. She just shook her head. You're definitely not a dream. How is that possible? You took a step forward and pressed her lips against his. Have a taste. It tastes the same as before. How could I not be dreaming? Zhang Xiaohua blushed and stepped back. Seeing this, Ye laughed out loud. Zhang Xiaohua glanced at the sheepskin scroll in Ye's hand and said, Then, why don't you give me the sheepskin scroll first? Give it to you? Why should I give it to you? Ye giggled and moved his body forward. If it was before, Zhang Xiaohua would have been happy to see her dream like this. She would have hugged Ming's waist without saying anything. But now, there was a gap in her heart. She leaned her body slightly and dodged. Ye covered his mouth and chuckled. Look at you. It's not like you haven't hugged me at night. Why are you shy now? What's your relationship with Ming? Zhang Xiaohua was sure that Ye, who looked exactly like Ming, was definitely not Ming. But You knew everything about her and Meng. Me? Didn't I say it? I'm talking about Meng. You smiled, and the dimple on her right cheek was deep. Wasn't it Meng's appearance? Seeing that you was a little distracted, Zhang Xiaohua took a big step forward and flew over to snatch the sheepskin scroll in Ye's hand. With Zhang Xiaohua's current skills, everyone present might not be her opponent. Even if this sheepskin scroll was in Di Shitian's hands, there was an 80 to 90% chance that it would be snatched away by Zhang Xiaohua. But Meng raised his hand slightly, and his entire arm was like an illusion. Zhang Xiaohua's hand grabbed nothing. "Io, my little husband, why are you so anxious? This servant originally wanted to spend a lifetime with you, but your way of doing things is breaking this servant's heart." You smiled tenderly. She did not seem angry at all. With a rub of her hands, the 4 sheepskin scrolls turned into ashes and disappeared. The seniors of the 4 immortal sects saw that the sheepskin scrolls were destroyed and their spirits were gone. They all fell to the ground limp. "No. Why did you destroy it?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and asked angrily, "Why can't this servant destroy it? This servant has already destroyed one before. What's wrong with destroying another one?" You smiled. "Already destroyed one?" Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She didn't think that there was another sheepskin scroll in the pugilistic world that could be used to enter the forest. "Zixia, let me ask you. Just now you said that martial uncle Jing Xian had good intentions but did something bad. What's going on? Don't tell me." Peacock asked. "Little Peacock, do you want to know?" You looked at Peacock with disdain and smiled. "It's fine if Jing Xian went to look for treasures. Why did she bring this seat to Lingering Fragrance Peak for no reason? She delayed this seat's cultivation for a few years for no reason. Killing her with one palm is considered a bargain for her." "What? You? Shirtai? You killed her?" Zhang Xiaohua looked at her familiar face in disbelief. "Why can't I? This seat was cultivating when she took me to Lingering Fragrance Sect. Even this seat couldn't break the sect's protection array. If it wasn't for the demon core in Yulan Grand Canyon, this seat," you said with a cold smile. Before she finished, Zhang Xiaohua was shocked again and suddenly realized something. He pointed at you and said, "You cut Xiao Hei's mother into 2 and took away the demon core in her stomach?" That's right. Little Lang Jun, you actually went to that mountain?" The seat thought that only little Chun Chun and I were there. "You didn't hide anything." "Zixia, the beast hide in Yulan Grand Canyon. Was it you who provoked it?" Chun Chun asked in disbelief. It's me. Alas, I'm sorry. My cultivation was still shallow that day. I didn't expect that I would provoke another little thing." You smiled and said to Zhang Xiaohua, "However, I won't do it again from now on. My husband, even though I haven't fully recovered my cultivation, it won't be a problem for me to deal with little Martin. I have to thank you for this." Zhang Xiaohua was really stunned. He really couldn't figure out the relationship between Ya and Meng. Could it be that they were twins? But he had never heard Meng mention it. "Of course, who should I thank if not you?" With that, you raised her right hand, revealing the dark ring on her right ring finger. She smiled and said, "If it wasn't for little Lang Jun giving this storage ring to me, how could I find the long-lost cultivation method of the devil cult in this ring?" This is a storage. What kind of ring?" Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. Why can't my divine sense detect it?" "Little Lang Jun, you are a cultivator. Of course, you can't use things from the devil realm. What's so strange about that?" You was still smiling and raised her hand. "This storage ring is a good thing even in the cultivation world and the devil realm. I didn't expect little Longjuan's luck to be so good. I have never found such a wonderful thing here. Alas, it's a pity that there is only the lower part of the cultivation method in this ring. There is no basic incantation for the upper part. I have to think about it." You sighed softly. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly thought of the black jade slip he found with the ring in his money bag. Suddenly, Ya's face twisted, as if she was in extreme pain. She stopped Zhang Xiaohua from saying what she wanted to say. Looking at Ya's painful face, Zhang Xiaohua's heart ached for no reason. Ya's eyes were full of vigor, then emptiness, and then color returned. When she came to her senses, she saw Zhang Xiaohua and said in surprise, "Xiaohua, you're here too?" Then she looked around, covered her mouth, and whispered, "Ren Xiaoyao, you're here too?" But then, before Zhang Xiaohua could say anything, she closed her eyes again. After a while, she opened her eyes. Her eyes were full of pain and tears. "Xiaohua." Meng Yi was not as arrogant as before. She said in a low voice, I don't know how to tell you. Are you a dream? Were ya?" Zhang Xiaohua wanted to go forward, but she stopped after taking a step forward and asked tentatively, "Of course I'm a dream." Tears flowed out from Meng Yi's eyes. She cried and said, "But I'm going to disappoint you. Similarly, I am also ya." Not only Zhang Xiaohua, everyone present, except for Di Shitian, had a face full of surprise. Azura, Heavenly King, leaped and was about to rush over. "Stand there." Zhang Xiaohua snorted coldly. Dream-chasing sword flew over and turned into 64 small swords, blocking in front of Azura. "If you take another step forward, I will take your life immediately." Azura looked at the flashing swords in front of him and was extremely shocked. He looked at Di Shitian, who was sitting on the ground not far away. Di Shitian seemed to have a card up his sleeve and nodded slightly. Azura then sat down. Zhang Xiaohua didn't move. The 64 flying swords turned into a rod and flew to her side like a fish. She didn't care about Azura at all and only asked with concern, "Meng, what about you? Why are you her?" "Xiaohua, it's a long story. I also just fused with Ya's memories, and only then did I know some of the secrets," Meng Yi said with tears flowing down her face. "Fused with memories?" Zhang Xiaohua murmured, not knowing what to do. "Xiaohua, do you still remember what I told you on Lingxiang Peak? I often dream that I kill people and my hands are full of blood. I remember that is not a dream, it's real." Meng said bleakly, "There are two consciousnesses in my body, or rather, there are two people. During the day, I am your Meng. After midnight, I will go to sleep. The other person is Ya. She will wake up. I don't know what she has done, but she will know what I have done. When the sun rises, I will wake up again, but you will be asleep. There's actually such a thing." Zhang Xiaohua was flabbergasted. "But it's daytime now, it should be you. Why did you come out? Isn't it because of the ring you gave me? That day when I saw the ring in your hand, I felt that I liked it. I don't know the reason, but Kia knows. She found a cultivation technique in the ring, and after cultivating, her cultivation has improved greatly. She has already begun to gradually devour my consciousness, so she can also appear during the day, and at the same time she devoured me. I also learned of her secret. When she devours my consciousness, this dream will disappear. I will become Ya, or the Meng Yi you mentioned. Then, you won't be you anymore." Zhang Xiaohua was anxious. How can I help you?" "No, you can't help at all." Meng Yi shook her head sadly. Then, she murmured with pain on her face, "Xiaohua, I have to go back." Then, Meng Yi's eyes flashed with a scarlet brilliance. There was no trace of pain on her face. Her face changed into another expression, just that this expression was more ferocious than before. You woke up, looked around, and sighed, "Meng Yi, just obediently follow me. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? It seems that I still need more food." Before you finished her words, her whole body floated up and flew directly to Master Tiangang, who was closest to her. Master Tiangang saw this and frowned. He waved his hand, and the wheel of Yin Fan spun and rushed towards Ya's waist. "Meng, be careful." Zhang Xiaohua blurted out, then she covered her mouth. She knew that she said something wrong. However, he didn't understand why Ya suddenly left. Perhaps she had something to do with Master Tiangang? "Don't worry, little husband. Nothing will happen." When the wheel of Yin Fan flew to her side, you didn't forget to turn her head back and said with a smile. Zhang Xiaohua was embarrassed. Just as he lowered his head, the wheel of Yin Fan hit Ya's hand. However, something strange happened. The wheel of yin fan seemed to have seen the person closest to it. With a buzzing sound, it only rotated slowly on Ya's hand and didn't make any attack. This! Everyone was horrified, including Sakura. You demoness! Master Tiangang reluctantly rose up and attacked you with both hands in his sleeves. Seeing that you didn't move at all, Sakura became anxious and shouted, "Lord, be careful!" Lord? Before everyone came to their senses, Ya's hand stretched out slightly and grabbed Master Tiangong's head. Master Tiangang didn't even move and let you do as she wished. With a cracking sound, Master Tiangong's head split open and blood dripped down to the ground. What are you doing? Zhang Xiaohua was anxious. His impression of Master Tiangang wasn't bad. With a push of his divine sense, Chasing Dream turned into sword light and lingered around you. Ayaya, little husband, are you going to fight with me? You laughed. If you want to eat, just ask Sakura for it. Why do you have to kill people? Zhang Xiaohua said angrily. Little husband, this Dalan Temple's monk. Is this servant's food? You looked innocent. How is that possible? Everyone was horrified. At this moment, black gas rose from the ground and dripped along Master Tiangong's blood. In just a moment, Master Tiangang turned into a dry corpse. Then, a strange scene stunned Zhang Xiaohua. Black and red flames were emitted from Ya's hand, and Master Tiangong's corpse was immediately set ablaze. In less than half a cup of tea's time, it was reduced to ashes, leaving behind over 10 sparkling and translucent Buddhist relics on the ground. Ya waved his hand, and over 10 tiny relics appeared in his hand. He took a look at them, shook his head, and sighed. How do the monks of Dalan Temple cultivate? It's really getting worse with each generation. As he said, he opened his mouth and poured all the relics into his mouth. Ya's teeth made a crunching sound as he chewed the relics and swallowed them into his stomach. Seeing everyone's stunned look, you didn't have enough and looked at Master Yuan Dao as if Master Yuan Dao was a delicious meal. Who are you? Zhang Xiaohua shouted. Not far away, another voice said in unison. When everyone looked, it was the Dalan Temple's abbot, Master Changsheng. Master Changsheng stood up and walked in front of you. He put his palms together and said, "Alms giver, who are you? Why did you say that my Dalan Temple is your food?" "Ha ha," you laughed. "Little monk, you're really brave. Since you asked, I'll tell you. Little monk Changsheng, what do you think is the difference between your Dalan Temple's relics and my Tenryu sex bones?" This, Master Changsheng had just fought with Maharaga and witnessed his white bone whip turning into bones. Now that he heard it, he felt that there was no essential difference between the two except that their attributes were completely opposite. Are they the same? You smiled. Then look again. What's the difference between your relics and the inner elixirs of demonic beasts? This, Master Changsheng was speechless again. Zhang Xiaohua also understood. No wonder when she heard the great Master Changgung talk about relics, the first thing she thought of was the inner elixir. At the same time, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly thought of the Buddhist space. Also, don't you think that the 8 divine dragons in the Buddhist scriptures are very similar to the 8 heavenly kings of my Tenryu sect? Of course, some of the Buddhist statues in the Dalan Temple were very similar to some of the heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect. This had always been suspected by many people. But after all, the Dalan Temple's Buddhist light was the nemesis of the Tenryu sect. No one thought that the Tenryu sect had anything to do with the Dalan Temple. Do you understand? You Dalan Temple recite Buddhist scriptures and practice Buddhist techniques. The only purpose is to be my food. When I founded your Dalan Temple, I wanted to raise a flock of sheep for myself. When I need relics, you could deliver them to me. Everyone was shocked. Who is this, ya? Hee, little Angjun? Are you scared? This servant is the real Sakura, and this Dalan Temple is nothing but this servant's kitchen. Amitabha, good. Master Changsheng chanted the name of Buddha, and he shook his head slightly. Don't call me Amitabha. I just took it from the Buddhist sect for temporary use. You smiled. Although all the techniques of your Dalan Temple can restrain the Tenryu sect, the foundation is the techniques of the demon realm. Therefore, in my hands, you don't have the slightest ability to fight back. You are Master Xin Kong. Not far away, Master Yuan Dao still didn't believe it. Master Xin Kong is a man. How can you be? Hee, little monk, I am from Xin Kong. The Dalan Temple was created by me, and so was the Guyuan Tower. Every 100 years, I have to go to the Guyuan Tower to eat. You laughed. Every 100 years? Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. You? How old are you? Before you could answer, Master Longevity laughed and said, I've always laughed at Wu Xiao, saying that he didn't understand Dharma and didn't cultivate the true scriptures. Now it seems that they're the only ones who cultivate the true Buddha, while we are just animals in the shed, food for human flesh. Forget it, forget it. Now I know that everything is empty. Now I know that sex is really empty. As he spoke, his figure suddenly rose. In a flash, the demon slaying sword in his hand stabbed toward you. You chuckled softly. He nimbly snatched the demon extermination sword and stabbed it into Grandmaster Longevity's abdomen. A stream of blood flowed out, splashing onto Yu's face. Coupled with Yu's sinister smile, it looked extremely terrifying. When Zhang Xiaohua saw this, she was shocked. This scene, wasn't it what she saw in the River of Karma? In the River of Karma, the Lady Aya that Zhang Xiaohua saw was actually not Lady Aya. It was actually, you. Zhang Xiaohua pointed at you. At this time, Master Chongqing's blood had flowed into the ground. A wisp of black fire was born from Yu's hand, burning Master Chongqing's corpse. You are Yu. Then, the Lady Aya that I went to find with you earlier. Who is she? Zhang Xiaohua said in surprise. Sai, little husband, you were really smart all your life, but stupid this time. Lady Aya is of course my mother. You smiled as if it was a matter of course. But, aren't you Sakura? Or the founder of the Dalan Temple? Master Xin Kong. How can Lady Aya be your mother? Zhang Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled. Also, I accompanied you to find your origins. Lady Jiu, Sikong, and Granny Chiu. Where did they go? When I went back again, why couldn't I find that place? Little husband, you are really considerate. You actually went there again. Since little husband wants to know, then, I will explain it to you clearly. You smiled charmingly. She looked at the corpse that was burning at her feet and said, Actually, that small mountain village didn't exist at all. It never existed. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. Then she heard you say, Actually, when little monk Changgung told you about my appearance, I knew that maybe you would find out that I was the saintess of the Tenryu sect. But at that time, I didn't have a good foundation for the demonic arts and didn't want to leave Lingshan Peak, so you notified the Tenryu sect? You asked them to kill the whole family in Yixia Town and the small mountain village in Baiquan Mountain in advance? Zhang Xiaohua said indignantly. Oh, little husband, you guessed wrong. You smiled. At this time, Master Chongsheng had been burned to ashes, and there were more than 10 relics on the ground. Zhang Xiaohua's face relaxed and said, Then who is it? Nonsense, of course it's me. You waved her hand, and more than 10 relics appeared in her hand. She smiled and said, The disciples of the Tenryu sect just came to find you after hearing the news. I didn't want to attract your attention. You. Zhang Xiaohua looked at you in a daze. Yes, this was definitely not a dream in her heart. You go to sleep at midnight. How would you know what happened at night? You said disdainfully. But what about Dragon Mountain? Why didn't you do anything? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. Nonsense again. You've already arrived at Serpent Mountain and coincidentally met Chu Zhigao. Even if I killed his mother, wouldn't you be even more suspicious? Besides, you slept at the entrance of the cave that night and even set up a restriction on the cave. How could I bear to break your heart to protect me? What about the small mountain village? It really doesn't exist? Zhang Xiaohua found it hard to believe. Of course, I had no choice but to inform the disciples of the Tenryu sect and let them set up a temporary trap on the top of the mountain next to Poyang Town. Fortunately, I met you there that day. Jingxian is already dead. Who would know where I am? It's just that those disciples are too stupid. They don't even look like villagers. There was no movement at night. Did you find some clues and went back to check? You said hatefully. Also, there was no corpse in the tomb at the top of the mountain. If you really used your divine sense to check, wouldn't you make me think again? Of course, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly realized why she felt that the small mountain village was a little strange that night. When she was in the Guizhuang house, other than the chirping of insects, there was also the sound of teeth grinding, babbling, crying, and even moaning. But in the small mountain village, other than the sound of the wind, there was nothing else. They were all disciples of the Tenryu sect. They were conscientiously carrying out the orders of the saintess. Who dare to sleep? Who dare to do anything else? As for the tomb, Zhang Xiaohua naturally wouldn't use his divine sense to check it. Even the second time, he used his divine sense to check if it was a tomb. Then, why did you appear at the ferry outside Poyang town? Zhang Xiaohua's mind was in a mess. He couldn't figure out the reason. Looking at you chewing on Master Changsheng's relic, he didn't know whether he should kill her or not. Yu was Meng. He couldn't bring himself to kill her. If Meng didn't appear at the ferry, perhaps he wouldn't have met her and wouldn't have started this unforgettable love. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but ask, how would this servant know? You spread out her hands and answered unexpectedly. That's because this servant really doesn't have any memories. I also don't know why I was met by Jing Xian. As for why I went to the ferry, young master, didn't you find the treasure Jing Xian was looking for? Then, as if she thought of something, she turned to Sakura and asked, Sakura, why do you think this lord got lost from the Tenryu sect? When Sakura heard this, he replied respectfully, reporting to Lord, that period of time was the day of Lord's return. Lord should have been recuperating in Heavenly Dragon sect, but I don't know why. Lord suddenly disappeared from the hall. At that time, this servant was scared to death. I sent a lot of people, but couldn't find you. However, at this point, Sakura looked at Zhang Xiaohua and smiled. However, this servant understands now. Lord must have gone to look for the next Sakura of the Tenryu sect. Ha! He giggled. She covered her mouth and said, That's right, the heavens have given me this fate. I met you at the ferry. Since then, I've benefited greatly from your great fortune. So, I've been able to get a lot of benefits. If it wasn't for young master, how could this servant obtain the demonic scripture? If it wasn't for this demonic scripture, how could this servant find the method to refine the demonic flag? If I couldn't refine the demonic flag, this servant could only be trapped here until death. But with young master, all of these things became possible. Young master, do you think you and this servant are destined to be married by the heavens? If we can't help each other in difficult times and treat each other with respect, how can we face the heavens? While she was talking, Ye's body suddenly flashed with a red light. At the same time, the ground started to shake and rumble. A look of surprise flashed across Ye's face. She pointed her finger, and a wisp of black gas separated from her finger and seeped into the ground. Zhang Xiaohua only saw darkness in front of her eyes. A pitch-black flag flew out from the ground. It was the demonic flag that Zhang Xiaohua saw in the Buddha's space. At this moment, the surface of the demonic flag was no longer pitch-black. Instead, there were many blood vessels. The blood vessels were densely connected together. Moreover, the blood vessels seemed to be suspended on the surface of the flag. Under the sunlight, they were shining with scarlet brilliance. It looks very familiar, right, young master? You pointed at the demonic flag. The demonic flag flew up and wrapped around Ye's curvaceous body, covering her purple robe. I really can't imagine. Where did you get such great luck from? I used the demonic flag to suppress the 9th grade Lotus platform that I couldn't use under the demonic flag. I used the Buddhist power of the 9th grade Lotus platform to provide the Buddhist light to the tower. Yet, you actually took drastic measures and took away the 9th grade Lotus platform. If it weren't for the fact that I can no longer use the tower in the future, the tower would no longer have the Buddhist light. He said with a smile. Then, he turned to Master Yuan Dao and said, Little monk, I'm the great Taoist Master Xiankong. You have to believe me. A month ago, I took this demonic flag from the Origin Returning Tower. I even made the Origin Returning Tower emit Buddhist light. Yes, this is the Origin Returning Tribulation that I mentioned. Aren't all of you here to face the tribulation? Little monk, do you know now? What is the real Origin Returning Tribulation? With that, you wave her sleeve, and a scarlet light hit Master Yuandao. Master Yuandao immediately began to wither, like a tree branch that had lost its moisture. And you all, ha ha ha, you laughed wildly. Several red lights shot out. Master Chongqing and Master Yuanming couldn't dodge in time and began to wither. Stop. Zhang Xiaohua shouted, wanted to stop you. You looked at him with a smile and asked curiously, Little husband, these are all my pets. Why do you want me to stop? Then, she waved her hand again. Alliance Master Zhang San, who had been standing at the side with his mouth agape, involuntarily flew into Yu's hand. You, what are you doing? Alliance Master Zhang San shouted in horror. What am I doing? What else can I do? You continued to smile and said, I use some demonic kung fu in Xing Town's Ma family. It's exactly the same as the Dalan Temple. Since you've cultivated it, of course you'll end up like the monks of the Dalan Temple, right? Alliance Master Zhang San's expression changed drastically. Before he could speak, all the blood in his body was drawn out by it. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.